Meeting July 26, 2016 to order. We're going to start with a moment in silence. Today we have Reverend Dan Phillips from Grace Fellowship with us, and if we could, Reverend Dan, we lost one colleague with Flagler County Commissioner Frank Meeker passed this week. Putnam County Auxiliary Deputy Kevin Walker, which you all know, and our beloved Chief Charlie Pt.1 from Welaka unfortunately passed yesterday, so let's keep those folks as we offer our benedictions. The Reverend Flagg will lead the pledge. We'll all stand, please.
Stand in silence for a moment as we reflect on lost servants to this county, to this area. Father, we are here in your presence in a very special room, a very special place. People with a history of this area may look at this room and say it's from a failed business. It's from something that didn't make it. But Father, this is a room where people are committing their lives of public service, to be a part of God-ordained county government. And there are people on the outside that will quickly tell us we're the last county, we're the lowest county, we're the poorest county, we don't matter. But Father, we do matter to you. We are part of your creation. We are made in your image, and we care about our county. We care about our families. We care about our fellow citizens. And so, Father, I ask that in this room this morning, special wisdom from on high be granted to each and every one in this room, not just the commissioners, not just the people that work here, but Father, everybody that is assembled, may they have a special measure of wisdom from you. May everybody in this room, Father, have a very special measure of compassion for everyone in this room, for everyone outside this room, in this city and in this county, so that, Father, the business, the lives that are touched in this room, they are done in the very best way possible. We owe you nothing less than our best. And may we demonstrate that beginning right now this morning. Father, for those families that have lost loved ones, the ones that were mentioned just a few moments ago, Father, I ask that your presence be known in each one of those families, each one of those homes, that your Holy Spirit, Father, is wrapping arms of love and compassion around each one in this time of loss. The same love, the same compassion that we want to have for each and every one in our county. So, Father, we ask all of this, knowing we can't do it among ourselves, but we can do it with you through your Son. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Please join me in saluting our great nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, good morning to all, and thank you for all being here. Commissioners, number 2 on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the July 12th, 2016 meeting. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Plenty of them. All right.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. It carries. All right, next, we're going to convene our solid waste collection and disposal district. And if those mayors from your respective communities come forward, and welcome mayors this morning. We have Mayor Joseph Santa with us and Mayor Terrell Hill. We appreciate you guys being on board this morning.
Mr. Chair, if you could just indicate for the record that the BOCC meeting is recessed before convening the solid waste.
We're recessing the Board of County Commission meeting, July 26, 2016, convening the Solid Waste District Board on that same date.
Thank you.
Is that good, sir?
Very good.
All right. Okay. We'll open this meeting then.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the October meeting.
Very good.
Second.
A second. Any further discussion?
Question.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The minutes carry. Okay, next, Commissioner Harris, if you want to go in, well, let's go to Stacy Manning. Any comments? Certainly.
No, other than that it is a public hearing, so it should be open for discussion as well as public comment.
Yeah, I was going to start on my left with Commissioner Harris. Any opening remarks?
Not really. It's that time of year that we have to look at what we need to get the job done. And I know we've been very careful not to charge any more than we have to and to bring it down if we can. And it's just time to do that.
Okay. Commissioner Flack?
No, sir, not at this time.
Commissioner Pelser?
None.
Commissioner Harvey?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay. All right, at this point, I'll open it up to the public. Anybody from the public wishing to speak in this hearing, now's your time on the solid waste assessment. Seeing nobody, we'll close the portion of public comment, and we'll go into commissioner deliberation and mayor's deliberation also. Any comments? And I didn't mean to leave you guys out just a minute.
Not a problem. I have none.
I'm not used to having you up here. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Everybody-
can you
Yes, sir.
provide for the benefit of all concerned an overview of what actually is taking place? We have the summary and highlights, but just for the record, just under the summary highlights, I think should be a part of our.
Yeah, I'll read the opening paragraph, and it outlines it very well. By county ordinance, the board is required to establish by resolution, which we're doing today, the solid waste special assessment prior to the beginning of each fiscal year. Based on current engineering estimates for a new cell development, on-site leachate treatment cost, and other ongoing landfill development and monitoring requirements, the landfill operations portion of the solid waste special assessment will be decreased from 184 to 172. Due to the increased cost for recycling, the recycling component of the assessment will be increased from $38 to $41 per household. This will result in a combined cost of $213 per year for each household in the county for disposal and recycling, which is a net $9 reduction from the current year and represents the total solid waste assessment for the households in Crescent City and Palaca, which provide their own solid waste collection. For those households outside the municipalities of Palaca and Crescent City, there will be a collection fee set at $112, which will result in a total annual assessment of $325, which is lower than the current assessment at $334. That's sufficient.
I so move adoption of the resolution, Mr. Chairman.
We have a
Second.
motion on the floor, a second. Any further discussion?
Question.
Okay, hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The motion carries. I thank you, mayors, commissioners, and we will close the hearing. All right, we're going to reconvene the Putnam County Board of County Commissioners meeting as soon as we have our clerk and our financial experts back up.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just one comment. This is
Sure.
the second year in a row we've been able to bring that down, and we've been working hard towards that effort.
That's commendable, especially to our landfill operators and employees, and Larry Gass has done a real good job. We have about 15 years of landfill space now in reserve. That is about $15 million, maybe a little more it will cost, but we seem to be getting that in control. And the benzene in our water table out there is, the test wells are showing lower levels of benzene as we remove those tires in the mining effort we did. So anyhow, that's all good news. All right, next, number 4 on the agenda is Carr Riggs and Ingram will present our annual audit. Welcome, Ms. Robertson. How are you this morning?
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Tina Robinson with Car Rigs and Ingram of 906 South State Road 19 here in Palatka. I lost some table space here.
No handouts today?
I believe you all have received your audit books.
This big?
Right.
The Bible? Yes.
This is it. I bring it just in case we need to look up any specific items in there. But good morning again, and as you know, we've just completed the audit of your fiscal year 9/30/2015, and I'm here to summarize those results for you. And I wanted to start out this morning by pointing out a significant new accounting standard that had an effect on your audit this year, as it did with all governmental audits. So for all governments who participated in the Florida retirement system, the FRS it's called, the financial statements this year are issued later than usual. As you know, normally we would be here a few months ago. But the information from the state FRS came to your county and all local governments in the FRS much later than the state had anticipated. So, here we are. And these new standards are GASB 68 and 71, and they relate to pensions. And the major effect on the statements is that pension liabilities, which are based on your allocated portion of the state's actuarial estimates. They have to get an audit, they have to get an actuary to look at projections and determine what your portion of pensions to be paid in the future would be. And those are now required to be recorded, accrued on your books. And in the past, that was not the case. Some of you may remember way back that there used to be no government-wide statements, and capital assets were not on the books. Long-term debt was not on the books. They were reported as separate, basically separate columns in the financial statements as standalone items, but they weren't incorporated into the entire governmental or business
Robertson,
activities.
What did the actuarial report suggest as far as the health of our pension fund? Because everybody in this room is affected by that.
Well, the state, the good news is that the state pension that you are a part of is 92% funded for the FRS portion. The HIS, which is the health insurance subsidy that's a part of the FRS, is funded to a smaller portion, and I don't have that figure. But the FRS itself is very well funded as a whole, and you're a participant in that.
Very good. Thank you.
If you want to see what your county, your portion is for that liability, you could look at page 43 on the long-term debt schedule, and you would see that the pension liability for the governmental activities is about $24 million. So that's projected out again into the future. It's not something you pay all at once, thank goodness, but you will have to look at that as a future liability. And year by year, that will be amortized. Page 44 of the long-term debt is for business type activities, and that one is a lesser impact. That's $446,000 liability for the business or your enterprise funds. And then in your footnotes section of your audit book, primarily note 2, which starts on page 23, you'll see about 5.5 pages of Florida retirement system disclosures that are new this year. In the past, there was only, maybe a couple of paragraphs on the FRS. And you'll also see in the required supplementary information, which is referred to as RSI, on pages 59 to 60, there are 2 new pension schedules. One reflects your contributions, and one is your liability, your proportionate share of the liability. And then also on financial statement page 1, you'll see a new account type called deferred inflows of resources that are pension related. and you have deferred outflows that are pension-related. So these are new items that I wanted to point out to you that you see that you didn't see in the past on your statements. Those are not assets or liabilities, therefore the Governmental Accounting Standards Board has created new account types for those. And they're all applicable to future periods and will be amortized as such. So your finance team had a lot bigger job to do this year in implementing the new standards, as did we, and testing all of that information. And, similar type thing would have happened in all of the governments. So the bottom line effect to your countywide statement of net position on page 1 is that your unrestricted balance, which is balances that normally you would have available for use, it's lower than in the past due to the pension accruals. So in fiscal year 14, you had a positive about 10 million there in unrestricted. This year, you're in a deficit of 16 million in the unrestricted portion. All governments are going to see some type of decrease in unrestricted, so it's not unique to Putnam County. Many are going to show a deficit, as yours did. And I want to point out that the large accrual is only related to the accrual-based countywide statements and to a lesser degree the business type. It does not change the way that your general fund looks or any of your other governmental funds. You still see those in the same way. Then I'll go back to the front of the audit book, to our auditor's report, which is on Roman numeral pages 1 through 3, and you'll see our opinion on the financial statements. On Roman numeral 2, you'll see that we say the statements are fairly stated in all material respects for each opinion unit. There are 8 opinion units this year, determined on criteria as to what constitutes a major fund under the standards. And then you'll see a new paragraph called Change in Accounting Principle that basically just states that you properly implemented the new pension standards. And in the last sentence on page 2, we state that the supplementary information is fairly stated in all material respects in relation to the basic financials. Also on page 142, as I pointed out in the past, you have a summary, kind of a snapshot summary of your audit results for fiscal year 15, and it summarizes our auditor opinions, as I just stated, that your statements are fairly stated, and it gives you the opinions on the major federal and state grant programs. So in this summary, we gave your unmodified or clean opinion. We also show that there were no material weaknesses found, but there were 2 internal control deficiencies disclosed, which are stated on page 143. Those related to certain IT controls that we felt could be strengthened, and we identify those there, the areas that we think you could look at. And the second one had to do with P-cards and the documentation of quotes not always present. We did not find any matters of noncompliance. And then also in that summary, it shows that we reported for the major federal and state grant programs, you received unmodified or clean opinions. Those major grant programs accounted for 95% of your total federal expenditures and about 72% of your total state grant funds expended. There were 5 major grant programs, and those, again, showed no noncompliance for those grants. And then with regard to your budgets, you were well within your budgets for the general fund, which is on page 55, and your 2 major capital project funds on pages 117 to 118. During the year, you issued long-term debt bonds from USDA, and you took out a short-term financing from the state DEP, state revolving loan, for the East Putnam wastewater project. And you also obtained a bond anticipation note from a financial institution for the jail project. And the latter part of the reports that are required by the State Auditor General start on page 134. The first one is called a management letter, and on this management letter, among other things, we're required to apply financial condition assessment procedures as of the end of the fiscal year, and we have to look to see if you meet the definition of a financial emergency or deteriorating financial condition as defined in the statutes. And I'm glad to say that the procedures show that the county does not fall into the condition of financial emergency, and you also do not meet the statutory definition of deteriorating financial condition. I will say that based on your 2015 expenditures, the unassigned general fund balance is sufficient to cover about 1 month of general operating expenditures that you would project going into the next year. GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, does recommend that you have a goal of 2 months coverage. We're also required in this letter to comment on whether any prior findings have been corrected, and we stated that there are no uncorrected prior findings. Last year, you had a finding on a budget over expenditure with SHIP, and that has been corrected. This letter also states that your annual financial report, which is a separate report filed with the State Department of Financial Services, is in agreement with this audited financial statements. Then the report on page 136 is our test of your compliance with Florida statutes, section 218-415, regarding investments, and we have to report separately on that, and we found no non-compliance. And then on page 137, you have a new report that was required this year by the state, which required additional audit procedures. This report attests to the county's compliance with certain sections of statutes 365, 172, and 173, and that's regarding authorized expenditures, distribution, and use of E911 funds. And here we found no non-compliance. And then separately from this audit, you also received a letter of required communications. I believe you received that by email. Some of which that information was already discussed just now in this presentation. That letter also refers to our responsibilities and the scope of the audit under the standards, as well as your responsibilities for oversight in establishing and maintaining internal controls, using proper accounting principles, and the fair presentation of the financial statements. That letter reiterates the discussion in our auditor's report that the audit includes limited procedures with regard to RSI, the required supplementary information, but does not express an opinion on RSI. But we do give an opinion on the supplementary information. That's all the schedules in the back that of the individual, say, special revenue, other capital project funds. And we stated that in relation to our audit of the basic financial statements, that those are fairly stated. And then finally in this letter, we point out that the most significant estimates and disclosures for fiscal year 15 are the pension-related balances and disclosures. That concludes my presentation, but I do want to, give my thanks to management and staff for their cooperation as usual in the conduct of the audit.
We thank you, Ms. Robertson, for your hard work, and I'll open the floor to questions from commissioners, and then our budget officer. Go ahead, Mr. Harvey.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Tina, in looking at some of the findings, there was one that our P cards and the sole source, do we have documentations on those? Because I have not seen that yet.
Documentation on your policy?
On what those were, the 5 findings that you found?
Our work papers would include our tests.
Okay. Could I get a copy of those?
Well, I can let you know which of those items were found.
Okay.
Yeah.
The
Our work
other-
papers are not public.
The other one that I have problem with is our internal service fund on page 120. Naturally, the whole room's full of people who want to talk about the insurance, but we were told at our last meeting that the fund should have had 300 and some odd $60,000 or $80,000 in reserves at the end of the fiscal year, only to find out that we were 460,000. Your finding says that we need to do a better job of looking at that. Is that what you said in that? We need to monitor that more closely.
No, I did not mention the internal service funds.
I thought I read it in here about us monitoring that a little close, but that's okay. On page 120, though, when you add up all the deficits, we got a $2 million deficit in fleet maintenance, group insurance, and risk management as of September 30th, 2015. That's a pretty significant finding for me. So my question to you, and maybe Ms. Popel will answer this, where does this deficit come from? Where are we going to, we're going to do a budget amendment, I'm sure, but where, is that how you'd recommend us to clean this up?
I don't have a recommendation on how you operate that internal service fund. I mean, we're looked at the financial statements. These are the results of your expenditures for the year. I mean, we didn't do an analysis of how that fund should operate.
Okay.
That would entail a separate analysis, separate procedures.
Ms. Popel, can you answer that, possibly? Well, are we going to do a budget amendment at the end of this year, before the end of the fiscal year, to satisfy that $2 million cumulative total right there?
That is management's intent,
Okay. And that'll come from general fund?
not solely.
Who did it take in, Commissioner Harvey?
It's
Service and
it's
who?
page 120, fleet maintenance, group insurance, and risk management fund. All those three funds are significantly in the hole. Mr. Chairman, that's all the questions I have for now.
Commissioners, anyone else? Seeing none. Mr. Jones, Mrs. Propel, any comments? Mr. Smith? Okay. I'll entertain, this is a action item, I do believe.
Mr. Chairman, I want to express the thoroughness of what Ms. Robinson and obviously the staff have put together, and how, again, the audit details. And I think we also need to make it known that this audit has no relativity to another audit that is based out of the Auditor General's office in Tallahassee. This is the annual audit that we anticipate each year. And the findings are what they are, and it's good that you have findings, so that it does mean that you are being thorough in evaluating the fiscal responsibilities, checks and balances in our county. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move receiving of the annual audit.
Motion on the floor,
Second.
and a second.
Mr. Chairman, one more question.
Further discussion, the floor is yours, Commissioner Harvey.
Ms. Robinson, there was one last question. I apologize for that. The value of our assets, now we're going to have to start carrying those on our balance sheet, basically. Are we, and you made a point in here about mining the landfill increased our value of that. Can you tell me, are we
Didn't
going?
mention the landfill. Are you looking at maybe management's discussion and analysis? And that is prepared by
Page
your management.
Roman numeral 14. Sanitation improved the landfill by mining, totaling $782, but that's in thousands.
Correct.
But my question.
That is management's discussion and analysis, so this is what you put together.
Okay. My question to you, though, since we're going to carry our assets on our sheets from now on, during the landfill discussion, the consultants were telling us two numbers, $375 million, $575 million was the value of the landfill. Are we ever going to see those numbers in some way on our balance sheet as an asset of the county?
Your landfill is an asset already
Right. But I
on
mean
your
the
books,
values,
and has been.
the values that they're projecting,
If
the
the
consultant.
engineer makes changes in the estimates and the valuation of that, then your valuation may change.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
good, thank you. That's it, Mr.
I think Mr. Jones should chime in on that.
Yes, the landfill is carried at historical cost. Improvements to the landfill do not necessarily increase the base cost of the landfill.
So that would be only if you had if that was a separate addition, not just an improvement to your existing.
Base cost or base
Landfill.
value? Base value.
Historical cost
Historical cost.
is gap.
So it's not on projected values?
No, it's not on projected values.
Okay.
There is a GASB statement out there in the works, I believe, where that may come to light in somewhere in the next decade, but we don't know that for a fact at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that ability.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion beyond Commissioner Harvey's? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the annual audit, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. It carries. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies. All right,
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Robertson, thank you as always.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair,
Yes.
this financial report and the CAFR will be posted on the website this afternoon.
Okay. Could you give a description of GASB versus standard accounting procedures? That confuses some people. I mean, a quick, maybe you can't, a quick one, but,
GASB is Governmental Accounting Standards Board, as opposed to FASB, which is Financial Accounting Standards Board, which is used for public companies. Here we are in the governmental sector, and there are different rules that we have to follow to meet the GASB standards.
that's what I wanted to get towards, because sometimes when the constituents are following what we're doing financially, I think that difference needs to be
Yeah, GASB
explained.
is more and more merging into the FASB framework, but they still don't meet. And maybe in the relatively near future, they will.
That's a good answer. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. All right. Okay, public comment. A lot of people waiting on this portion of the agenda. All right, we're going to, let me ask, there's a lot of people from our sheriff's office here today. Do y'all want to speak individually or with one voice? It's really up to y'all. There's a lot of cards here. We could potentially be here a long time. I'll do it any either way you want. What am I hearing? Sheriff Hardy, what am I hearing? Okay, all right. All right, Doug Mann, you're the first speaker today. Commissioner Pellissier, if you could run the clock, please, sir.
Gotcha.
My name's Doug Mann, 120 Cedar Creek Road. I am retired, living in the county. I'm a simple guy. I got 2 chickens running around the yard and this kind of thing. Doing some volunteer work with the EOC in emergency communications, and I've gotten familiar with some folks that work in the county. And I became aware of the insurance situation and the problem. I'm having a hard time understanding how it is that we just absorbed a half-cent sales tax increase. And we have these people that are not even, they're barely able to hold their own on their insurance costs. Our wages are lower in this county than anywhere around here. Costs are what they are. There has to be some way that we can somehow work that situation to the advantage, or we're going to start losing people, and it's not going to matter what buildings we build or where we build them, they're not going to be protected. So that is my only comment. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next, Hansel Woods, and on deck will be our... Folks, if you would, if we could hold your applause, it would be helpful in getting, we have a lot of cards. I'm going to limit to 3 minutes, and their comments. Mr. Woods.
Commissioners, I'm Hansel Woods with the Putnam County Sheriff's Office, and I actually didn't intend to speak here today until Commissioner Pelletier, one of your comments that was overheard before the meeting was that you viewed this as as potentially an act of intimidation by having this many of us show up here at one time.
No, sir.
Well, your mic was hot, but as a matter of fact, irregardless, the fact is that this is not an act of intimidation in any way. This is a plea from the people who work for you and who put their lives on the line for you every day. And they're barely getting by. This thing with the insurance is basically, it's a manifestation of a much larger problem. And it's symptomatic of the fact that they're living at a wage where they're barely standing on their tiptoes to keep their nose above water from paycheck to paycheck. And it's really sad because these are as fine young men and women and as competent and as well-trained as you're going to find in any law enforcement agency anywhere in this country. And I'll stack them up against them and put my life on the line. I do every day. Whether you realize it or not, you do too. And it's not that we're going to start losing people. We are losing people. And what I can't believe that this commission and this management can't see is that it's costing you and the taxpayers of this county more money to recruit, hire, train these people than if you just paid them a little bit more money, then maybe we could retain them. It costs $60,000 to train a new deputy for this county, for this agency, for darn near any law enforcement agency. It's costing us more money and we're losing the good people so that the person that shows up on your door is not a 15, 16, 17-year deputy in the middle of the night when you need them the most, but they're maybe 6 months or a year deputy, because anybody, they just can't afford to stay here. And that's the problem. They want to. They're struggling. That's why they're standing on their tiptoes, to keep their nose above the water from paycheck to paycheck. And I challenge you to establish a committee or a task force to look into trying to find a way to establish a living wage for the law enforcement in this community that is competitive enough with the surrounding counties that we can hang on to some people, and eventually it's going to save you money. And somebody has to look forward. That's your job. Your job is to not look at right now, is to look in the future, so you don't get up there and find the bridge out one day and go, oh darn, the bridge is out. What the heck are we going to do? It's out there. Please look ahead. Please try to establish a task force, a committee, or something to look into this problem. You need to try to get a step plan into this program so that these people have some incentive to stay here. They want to. They want to stay here and protect you and your families. Please give them a chance to do it.
R.L. Hayes. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you, sir?
Good, thank you.
I want to start off by saying I love Putnam County. I've grown up here. I've lived here since I was 11 or 12 years old. I've been at the agency for over 20 years. I heard the prayer this morning, and he was right. He was on spot. This is a calling from God to serve our community. I've never wanted to do anything else. It's either going to be military or law enforcement. And here I stand before you today as a law enforcement officer of 22 years tenure. None of us got into this profession to get rich. We knew that coming in. But we do need to be able to take care of our families. Lieutenant Woods said a few minutes ago some of the same things that I was going to say, so I'm not going to beat you over the head with it. But I looked out and I realized that most of these guys and ladies sitting out here in the gallery, they have less than 2 years of experience. And the harsh reality is that in 2 years, most of those faces you will not see, because they're going to leave and they're going to go somewhere else. And it's not because they're bad deputies, it's quite the contrary. They're excellent deputies. And that's why counties from around us, anytime they get an application from somebody from Putnam County, I would say better than 90% of the time they snatch them up and they hire them. And they're glad to have them come to work for them. I'm fortunate enough to be able to teach at St. Johns River State College at the Academy. And our background investigator, Mr. Zager, The major, several people have said when these guys come in, they're very happy with the instruction they get from gentlemen that I work with at our agency, and that's why they applied at Putnam County. There's a gentleman standing outside that just turned in his letter of resignation that echoed those sentiments when he started here. In good conscience, I can't continue to try and convince young people at the academy, older people at the academy, to come to our county. They're not going to be able to afford to live, and it doesn't make any sense to me. Without going into a bunch of personal stuff, I have family members who have health problems that are on my insurance. Some of the guys have said, well, just drop down to the lesser plan. I can't do that. I can't sacrifice for my family anymore. You can't, I know everybody's in an insurance crunch across the country, but I can't sacrifice for my family anymore and expect them to have lesser care because I can't afford for them to have the care that they want. I told my captain, who I work directly for, I don't know if I'll be able to afford to stay at this county. And I know losing me is not going to disable the machine. Losing any of us is not going to disable this machine that, this agency that we work for. But the people who suffer ultimately for people with 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years leaving are the citizens of Putnam County, and it's not fair to them. It's absolutely not fair. I'll close by saying that, again, I love this county. I've been honored to serve each and every one of y'all for the last 20 years, and we'll see what happens as to whether or not I can stay and do it anymore.
Thank you for your service, Mr. Hayes. Mr. Sparks. You could, Billy Sparks, yes. After that, it will be Captain Joseph Wells.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, sir?
Good. Billy Sparks. As several of you may know me, actually for quite a long time, I've lived here most of my life. I grew up here, went to all the schools here. I've worked for agencies in Putnam County for 28 years now. I married a local girl here, and as time went on, we planned on staying here. We want to make this our home. This is our home. Many of you may not know, but approximately 6 years ago, my wife came down with an incurable illness with her brain. The doctors haven't figured out what it is. The only thing they can do is treat it. And basically, in a nutshell, our insurance has kept her alive. She's had over 10 brain surgeries, somewhere over 45 spinal taps just to reduce the pressure in her brain. She's lost her vision, lost her hearing, and thankfully regained that after emergency surgery. She's now confined to bed approximately 22 hours a day. So when I work all hours of the day at work, I go home and I take care of her. With these insurance costs, we had to have the most expensive plan that would cover and help us with our doctor's visits. She has to visit doctors every month, numerous times a month. So going to the lesser plan to make it more affordable for us is out of our pay reach. We can't afford that. We can't afford to take the cut of paying out of pocket for each and every doctor's visit. As the lesser plan was, it would only limit us to a certain number of doctor's visits anyway. I implore each one of you to find some money somewhere to help with this insurance cost in the meantime, and in the future time, I would implore you to look for ways to give the employees pay raises. We've been 10 years without a pay raise. We continue to work here, all the employees. We do it out of love for Putnam County. Some of us, it's not as easy to just pick up and go off to another county to work, especially when you've been here 28 years, you're 50 years old. It's not likely somebody's going to just hire you up. So I ask this of you. Use your hearts. Take care of your county employees who are taking care of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sparks. Mark Bradford after Mr. Wells. Hi, Joe. How are you
Morning.
today?
How are you, sir?
Good, thank you.
Good. Before I get started, I just want to ask for a little bit of leniency. I can't possibly say what I intend to say today in 3 minutes, and I'm here week after week and hear people talking about high grass and potholes over their 3 minutes. So I'm allowing a couple extra minutes for me to speak about something this important today.
Granted, sir.
Thank you. Good morning. As most of you know, I'm Captain Joseph Wells, and I'm the Central District Commander for the Putnam County Sheriff's Office and a proud resident of Putnam County. Thank you for the opportunity to let me speak with you today about the mounting financial crisis facing the men and women of the Sheriff's Office and all dedicated employees of Putnam County. That is the unprecedented monthly increase in the cost of their health insurance plans, compounding the financial issues caused by years of no cost of living increases. The additional insurance cost to our employees is largely due to a reduction in the dollar amount contributed by Putnam County towards the cost of those health plans. I understand a diminished insurance fund is a factor in this, but no matter the reason, the plan selected or how you view it, in a few short weeks, it will cost our employees more money to insure their families. Deputies with families will take home anywhere from $150 to $570 less if the current plan becomes reality. The issue does not affect me financially. You see, years ago, and I've talked to some of y'all about this, I swallowed my pride and allowed my wife to insure me. She's employed by a neighboring county and can provide me with better insurance at a fraction of the cost than what I could provide for myself here in Putnam County. While I may face no personal financial impact, the drastic change in employee contributions leaves me greatly concerned about how our employees can stomach one more blow financially. On a side note, the manner in which Putnam County employees were notified about these proposed changes regarding this issue, quite frankly, shocks my conscience and angers me. The issue is affecting hundreds of county employees, but I'm going to speak to you today about what I know best, the Sheriff's Office. I want everyone in this room, especially the board, to understand that this sea of green you see behind me is my world. These law enforcement deputies, corrections deputies, dispatchers, detectives, and specialists mean everything to me. I am witness day in and day out. I get a little emotional because this is this is touching, this is hitting them hard. I am witness day in and day out to the selfless dedication that they display as they go about their business protecting and serving the residents of Putnam County. Their dedication is your protection. As you go about your daily routine and see a deputy sheriff carrying out his duties, make no mistake, he or she is only wearing the badge of the Putnam County Sheriff's Office because they love this agency and are dedicated to this county. It is certainly not because of monetary benefits. At any time, each and every one of them could walk into a neighboring county and expect to see 10, 20, or even 30% pay raises the minute they walk through the door. Not only do they give it their best, they're succeeding. You are living the benefits every day. While several factors affect crime rates, these men and women have played the most important and significant role in handing you a 50% reduction in total index crime over the last 7 years, a time frame in which they have done so with less resources, seen zero pay raises, and are now enforced to endure a significant reduction in the amount you pay towards their insurance. Little story on the side. After the news broke the other day, I was walking out of my office to my vehicle when I see one of our patrol cars pull up, and as the deputy stands out, I can immediately see the frustration on his face, and I could tell that something was wrong. So we go back inside the office and talk for a few hours. You see, he was going off duty, but he didn't want to go home. He didn't know how to tell his wife that this was coming. This is one financial blow that he can't stomach, and he says that he will no longer be able to meet his financial blows. So we stayed talking for several hours past his shift until he finally figured out how to tell his wife this was coming. I lay awake that night wondering how his wife took the news. Professionally, I agree with statements made by Sheriff Hardy in his recent address concerning the deteriorating financial solution of our employees. The potential impact of the proposed changes is disastrous. I believe the increased cost of insurance will be the proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back. The dedicated deputies and specialists that have held on for so long for things to improve will no longer be willing or able to do so. I recently attended a commander's conference at the Sheriff's Association in Tallahassee. One evening, I asked, after we were finished with all of our sessions, I asked for all the commanders from our surrounding counties to meet. I even offered to pay for dinner if they would all come meet and talk to me after hours. You see, I wanted to talk to them about the amount of deputies that we lose to their agencies. And I appreciate one of them being very honest with me. He looked me right in the face and he said, Joe, I'm going to be honest with you. The Putnam County Sheriff's Office has a reputation. You have a reputation of being very selective in your hiring process. You train your deputies well. Your deputies gain a great deal of experience very quickly due to their low average years of service and high call volume. But your compensation is the worst in the area. He told me to my face, he said, I'm coming after your deputies. It would be stupid for me not to. About a week or so later, one of our deputies was attending a training class at that very agency. When the sheriff of that county realized that he was in the class, the sheriff personally walked in front of a class of about 60 people, publicly offered him a job at that agency for more money. After a 2-week notice, that deputy took all of his training experience gained in Putnam County at the Putnam County taxpayers' expense and is now serving the citizens of Marion County. You can drive around this county any day and you see Duval, Flagler, Clay, and St. Johns County patrol cars parked at the homes of former Putnam deputies that want to continue to live in the county they love but simply can't afford to work in. We constantly struggle to maintain a full complement of deputies due to turnover surrounding counties. As a result, many of our patrol, corrections, and communications shifts are understaffed. Our average patrol deputy has less than 2 years' experience, and our most senior major crimes detectives have less than 5 years of total service. Is that what we want for the citizens of our county? I'm aware that other issues may cause people to leave an agency, but I also know that we are doing great things at the Sheriff's Office to recognize good work, to give our professionals ownership of the agency, and to develop their careers. None of that matters when they can't support a family. In exit interviews of employees leaving for other counties, they overwhelmingly say that they love the agency but must do what is best to financially care for their families. If these changes go into effect, it will multiply our current staffing deficiencies and I believe we will hemorrhage employees at an unprecedented rate. An 18-year veteran walked out of the sheriff's office last week because he could not meet his humble financial requirements. 18 years of high-risk service to the citizens of Putnam County with a gross salary of less than $35,000 a year. Since the news of proposed insurance costs broke, 13, probably more deputies have requested their personnel file for what is only presumably in preparation to apply elsewhere. I believe that if we lose deputies at the rate expected, we will have uncovered patrol zones and will be forced to cut service, much to the detriment of our citizens. I am an educated professional. I'm an educated man, and the professionals in this room are educated as well. We understand the fiscal constraints of our county. We don't compare ourselves to counties such as St. John's. If this were simply another year without a cost of living raise, we wouldn't be here. We are here because our employees and citizens cannot survive the potential impacts of the proposed insurance costs on top of years and years with no cost of living increases. Now, I understand there is some good news at the bottom of all of this. The terrible core insurance plan that previously limited doctor visits and provided little coverage has been replaced with a decent and viable standard plan. While not quite as extensive as the buy-up plan, the new standard plan will provide most of our employees with good coverage. Our insurance provider offered a more comprehensive standard plan at the same cost as the previous year's inadequate core plan. Yet our employees will pay more for that plan because of the proposed reduction in county's contribution. While a few $100s or even $100 a month may not seem like much to me or others in attendance here today, it's a game changer for the majority of our employees. My statements are not intended to lay blame. They are not intended to solicit responses as to why the county had no choice. They are not intended to spark comment about how things may improve in the future. Our employees can't support their family on notions of what the future may hold, and I cannot accept that there's no alternative to this. Our dedicated employees can't afford that response, and our citizens deserve better. I only ask one thing, and I'm wrapping up, I promise. Let us do what Putnam County residents always do in hard times. Let us come together for a solution that is amicable to all those concerned. Let us leave no stone unturned as we work together. There must be a way to avoid what I see as a potential disaster. While it is likely that there is little we can do to alleviate our employees who require the premium plan of the additional financial burden they must bear, I am asking that we put our heads together and find a way to make the same contribution this year to the 5302 plan that we made towards the 5301 plan last year, in light of the fact that Florida Blue Provided that insurance plan at the same cost to the county as last year, if we can make our contributions this year to the 5302, the same as they were last year to the 5301, you will then be able to hand most of your employees a much better insurance plan at no increase. We may even want to consider funding increased county contributions to our employees with family and child plans by passing on some costs to our single employees or dependents. This may be something we should look at. Our single employees with no dependents. The county increased its contribution to the single plan while reducing its contribution to the family and dependent plan, therefore passing more financial burden on to those who least can afford it. This seems backwards to me. After all, it is our employees with family responsibilities who can least afford any additional financial burden. In closing, God knows this great county has come together to solve difficult issues in the past. I'm confident we can do the same for a solution to these issues and provide every possible benefit to the dedicated employees of Putnam County that sit behind me here today, their families, many of whom are here, and our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Mark, I'm going to hold you up there, and I'm going to bring Mr. Benji Bates up, if I could. I didn't see you earlier, sir. I know you have an appointment at 10:30, but would you like to speak at this time for just kind of an overview of... Mr. Bates represents Florida Blue through his firm, Bates and Hewitt Insurance, and Benji, I'd like to just call on you if you can give a quick overview of what your challenges are with Florida Blue and maybe some guidance for us. We are looking, as Captain Wells says, for a solution.
Yes, sir.
We're all in this together. We're consumers too. Every commissioner up here pays for their insurance. That was a question out there. And we're in the same boat. But go ahead.
Benji Bates, Bates, Hewitt, and Floyd Insurance, 3400 Krill Avenue. Been blessed to represent the county for the past few years. And I'm just to, I guess, to give a background of, you know, the renewal process or how things got to the point they, if that helps, is that what you, a background?
Yes, sir. That would be great.
Started negotiations looking at the claims and experience in April. In late May, we pulled some reports. We looked at the utilization, the amount of claims to the premium that the county was utilizing. We looked at high-cost claimants. We had 22 claimants over $50,000. At that point, we knew that the county was going to be looking at an increase. We figured an initial increase north of 25%. We knew with the situation in the county, that would be a devastating blow. You know, I mean, seeing that number, knowing that number, foresaw leading to not maybe a meeting like this, but a situation where you're putting people over the brink that can't afford coverage and have to do without. We went to work, we negotiated, we looked at every option available. With that, we talked to county staff. We said this might be the year. You know, do you want to pursue a bid? You know, we represent every carrier. We're willing to do whatever the county directs. We looked around in the neighboring areas. We knew there were some bids going out. Florida Blue won those bids. You know, we went to Florida Blue. We had budget memos, and we went all the way up to the senior VPs, explaining to them, I understand you guys represent a lot of counties. I understand that you represent a lot of citizens, but let me tell you a little bit about Putnam County. You know, we're not able to absorb an increase. This is going to be detrimental. We knew the county wasn't in a position, it seemed. You know, we were told that the county was not in a position to fund any increases in health insurance. We threw everything we had at it, and we were able, and we also knew that the core plan last year had some deficiencies. So those were the two immediate challenges. So we threw everything we had at that situation. And when we walked away from that, what we presented was a new core plan that changed some of the doctor's visits. We had House Bill 221 that was passed over the summer, that when a member would go to an in-network hospital, and there might be physicians in the ERs, radiologists that were out of network, they could be billed in-network, out-of-network balance bills. House Bill 221 was passed over the summer. That means that if you go to an in-network facility for emergency room care, that entire visit's going to be treated as in-network. That was an increase in benefits. We looked at the generic drug card on the core plan. It was limited. We've got a new generic choices program. So now it doesn't cover every form. There's a 59-page formulary, but cancer, HIV, diabetes, these drugs are covered now. Ultimately, there are some this plan is not going to be a fit for. But we had everything we did was to try to present the county with a plan at no increase or as little increase as possible, because we knew that the residents, our law enforcement, we knew they couldn't survive that increase. So that's what we worked hard to do and presented. We looked at gap plans, we looked at alternates, we looked at ancillary products. We made a lot of proposals and a lot of different pitches at other products to help bridge gaps, do different things like that, and presented many of these options as well.
Mr. Bates, is it possible for employees with family plans and special need situations, whether it be children, adults, it doesn't matter, through the National Care Act, is there any possibility of pooling our employees in the county and insuring them through that network, or anything that would be better than what they're facing now? Because it is devastating.
In the Affordable Care Act, one of what you hear a lot about is the marketplace, or the expansion of the marketplace. And what the marketplace did, there's some mandates on you, the employer. As an employer, you're mandated on the individual to offer insurance that meets a 60% minimum value or greater, and it has to be deemed affordable. The affordability safe hold is 9.5% of your lowest full-time employee's gross wages. So that's how you, the employer, avoid fines and fees. If you don't do that, you're subject to fines and penalties. So that's the mandate you're given. Now, there is what's called the family glitch, because we know that an individual that is offered qualified coverage at affordable rate, themselves and their families are not eligible for government subsidies through the marketplace or through the employer-sponsored plan. Again, if you look at the insurance on that, many employees are going to find that rate is going to be more than what the county is offering. Because again, the county has a contribution. If they go out on their own in the marketplace, there's going to be no contribution. There's been changes in that. Unfortunately, in Putnam County, we had two players the last 2 years. You know, United Healthcare, they made an announcement. They're leaving many states. They're leaving Florida. So there's, one carrier in that. There are, which we've talked about, Florida Healthy Kids. Some people, some individuals qualify for Medicaid. Some qualify for even Medicare. There's the county prescription drug program. So there are a number of resources. But each one's individual and specific to that individual. You mentioned pooling. There are statutes within the legislature that allow for the pooling, of insurance. It's common, I think the county does it on their property and casualty. You've got a couple different trusts out there. FMIT, the Florida League of Cities, has one. The county has looked at that. Again, they looked at that last year. I think looked at it this year. What I heard wasn't competitive, and also when you look at theirs now, they've got investment incomes, they've got that, but they also had a negative a liability in that as well. There's pros and cons to that.
Let me ask you this. All right, you said, just like our actuarial report earlier in our audit, you're doing that now. You're trying to predict the best you can with blindfolds on what our cost will be for 2016.
Yes, sir. Well,
is there any, wait a minute, let me finish. Is there any kind of way to not implement those projected costs and until they go over, if they go over? You see what I'm saying? We were to hold them in check and had a lower cost there that everyone was happy with, but if we did have that catastrophic case or two or whatever it is that we would pay then, is that possible?
Repeat that to.
I know you do it on a forecast of
Yes,
what it's
sir.
going to be based on high claims we had last year. But what if we don't have those high claims? Could we not pay for the projection?
Well,
now?
as the county sit, the county, and one thing that we're looking at is, possibly a fully self-funded situation, but you're fully insured. So you enter into a 12-month contract with any insurance carrier, and you're guaranteed those rates for the next 12 months, regardless of the claim outcome. And then prior to that,
I don't want that guarantee. Can I get the deal without the guarantee?
Then, well, you could look at a self-funding arrangement where, the county, you hire a company TPA to handle your claims, to handle your contracts, the administration. You fund it. There's some positive there. There's some, you'll have a lower administration. You'll avoid some of the fees and taxes of the Affordable Care Act. There's some additional liabilities that the county takes on with that. It's a viable option. Again, we previous to the renewal, we said, that's something, we really need to get looked in. Independently, we hired an independent TPA actuary service firm to come in because, again, even though we represent the insurance companies, sometimes I want to get expert outside opinion and not rely on everything.
Sure.
So we hired that firm to do a full workup. And in the next few months, we'll be able to present you with the findings so you can look at the pros and cons of your funding. Does it make sense to stay fully insured? Do we need to look at self-funding and make that decision for the next year? But that is one option. Ultimately, even in that, you're still going to set rates for that. And then you're going to, look at utilization and make adjustments the next year. Because again, if you have those increased claim activity, and just like you have a negative insurance, if you set the rates and we're not going to have any claims and set the rates here, 6 months in, Ms. Mappel could come and say, hey, we've got a negative $2 or $3 million unfunded liability in our self-insured pool, so that would have to be adjusted at some point. But that is an option with the funding. There's many nuances with that, but it is, again, some of the big, the pros, as we've talked about there's some of the fees with the Affordable Care Act. Some of these fees can be avoided in a self-funding situation.
It's all worth looking at.
Yes, sir, and that's being done now.
Yeah. All right, I appreciate you coming here. I know you had.
Oh no, I've rearranged my schedule. So any questions? I'm here to, any expertise questions that I can answer.
Commissioners, we have them at the podium. Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you. Bring him back since he answered your question. Let's go ahead and hear the rest of the.
Why don't we do that? You take notes of what you're hearing from the floor today, and then we'll bring you back up at the end of the meeting. And thank you for rearranging your schedule. That was
no
very
problem.
nice. This is important. Mr. Mark, thank you so much for waiting. The floor is yours, and after Mr. Bradford is going to be Stephen Breckenridge.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Council, I want to thank y'all for letting me come up and talk to y'all. I've got a unique experience there. 35 years ago, I was broke down at Palm Avenue and Krill Avenue, and this big fella pulled up in this blue car, stepped out, he had a blue coat on, and he pulled out this nice Stetson, put it on top of his head. And he said, can I help you? And I said, I got a problem. Can't get this car started. He said, well, let me push it aside, and I'll take care of you. Well, that fellow had to be your daddy. Fellow's here. He said, you're a big old boy. And I said, well, yeah, sir, I do eat a lot. He said, would you like to come work for me? Out of the blue. Didn't know me from Adam. And I said, well, I really didn't plan on working for the sheriff's office. He said, but you work good in the jail. Well, 35 years later, that's where I'm still at. I retired after 30 years, though, and that's where my uniqueness comes in. I get retirement. I get my 3% every year in my retirement. I work part-time at the sheriff's office now, and that's money in my pocket. Yeah, but I do it not for the money. I do it for these guys. Here, I'm there to help them. It's just one of those things that I can look back and see these guys and see how they're struggling there. Back in 1983, I made $1,000 a month. 1983. And some of these guys, I look at their paychecks, and they're making the same thing I'm making back in 1983. It just blows me away that they're actually still working for us. Incredible. Incredible. And it's a darn shame. These men and women behind me are the most dedicated, most professional people I've ever had pleasure to serve with. I've got their 6, they've got my 6. I don't even have to ask that. They just need to be taken care of. I'm begging you, you need to take care of them. I've never seen the way that things are going now. A law enforcement officer needs to stay focused. They need to stay focused on the job. But if they got this going on, this going on, this going on, they're not focused, sorry. Something's going to happen. And I can't, it just scares me, because being 35 years worth of it and seeing it, I know from experience it will happen. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Morning.
Morning.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize we were allowed to speak at this, so I'm not totally prepared. When I joined the Putnam County Sheriff's Office back in 2013, Putnam County was the #1 violent crime county in the state of Florida. And you're losing people. 2 years later, we're #4. These guys are doing a great job. They do it. I want to know, is it the county commissioner's contention that I right now pay $385 a month for my insurance, family plan? It's going to go up $600. That's $11,820 over the year. Take that out of my $30,000 check. These are just a few round numbers. I have to pay a mortgage. My mortgage is a little more than others. But let's say I had to pay $800. That's $9,600 a year. Deduct that. What about my groceries? $200 a week? Fair? I'm in the hole. I don't qualify for food stamps. I supposedly have a great job, a career. The government wants to pay $15 minimum wage to a McDonald's worker. I make way less than that right now. So is that what the county commissioner's contention is, that I live off that? I have to pay $600, $980 a month for insurance? It's unacceptable. I made one phone call while I was gone when I got the news. If I can work this thing. From Allied National Insurance Company. Are you familiar with them?
Mr. Bates.
Mr. Bates, are you familiar with Allied National? I can get $1 million policy, 80/20, with a $2,500 deductible. It's got bill stop with GAP. It's PPO. I got preventive maintenance with the doctors. $2,500 deductible, $463 a month. County contributes $0. I can jump up to a $4,000 deductible and it's $10 cheaper. And the county contributes $0. What's my incentive to stay in the county that I can't afford? I don't understand it. I think we can do a better job. Thank you.
Thank you. Tina Whitten. Good morning.
I'm Tina Whitten from 1411 Carr Street. I work at the Putnam County Sheriff's Office in the Warrants Division. Unlike these guys who face bullets when they go out, thankfully I don't have to do that because they're out there to protect me. The one question that I had was, what other insurance companies and what other insurance agents were considered when looking for our insurance this year?
Whitten, this is a comment portion of
Okay.
public comment, but
Okay.
we're logging your question.
Okay.
And at the end, when we open it back up, we will talk about that specifically for you.
Okay,
We will.
thank you.
Okay.
And one thing that kind of amazes me in this county, I had a school board person that when they ran for the school board, one of the main goals that they had, they told me all they had to do was serve 2 terms and they would draw a pension for the rest of their life. Now, granted, if they only serve the 2 terms, it might be a little bit, but they start out at $31,000 a year right now. And from my understanding, the county commission starts out at a little over $44,000 a year. And we have guys out fighting bullets, you know, keeping us safe. This start out around 29,000. You know, to me, that's just kind of ridiculous. And, you know, I'm just wondering who else in the county is willing to give of their funds. You know, I'm sure nobody wants to give their pay back, but we accept people out there protecting us. So I would just like for y'all to consider that, you know, how backwards that seems, that we want somebody to protect us and we're not even protecting them. Now, I'm a single person, so my insurance, if I do the buy-down plan, I wouldn't have to pay anything. However, I have quite a few health issues, and even with the insurance that I have right now, I have unpaid doctor bills because of things that the insurance doesn't pay, that I'm responsible for. And, you know, I make a lot less than the deputies do. However, I'm not out there fighting the bullets. And I would just like for y'all to think about it and think about the quality we're asking the people in uniform to stand under.
Tom Williams. He's got his address.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Tom Williams, 1117 State Road 20, Interlochen, Florida. Just about everything's been said here with the gentlemen and the ladies that have talked up ahead. My only thing on this isn't a secret, guys. Some of you have been up here for 11, 12, 13, 14 years possibly. And all these guys and women out here have worked for us to do this job, and we haven't done anything to increase their salaries. Now, you know, I went to the budget hearing workshop with on the sheriff's thing. At that time, I didn't remember anything brought up about the insurance was going to climb so high. Had it done so, possibly Jeff could have put together a little bit more budget, and you wouldn't be pulling $240,000 out of his budget already. But again, this isn't a secret. Our problem with this county is not the money that we pay these people. It's the money that we don't have to pay them, because you all haven't increased our tax base in this county. I've been here since 1998. I've seen minimal growth. And I realized that we had this big downfall in 2008, and I have a small business in Interlochen, and I'm still recovering from it. But we plan ahead. I don't think this county plans ahead for much of anything. You all as commissioners, you outsource to the Chamber of Commerce, which may be doing an okay job. I don't know that because I'm not part of it. But your job is to grow the county. Every county around us has grown in the last several years since I've been up here. St. John's is one of them. I mean, I'm not comparing us. I'm just saying I don't think you all do your job. And I understand every one of you, and I get along with every one of you, and I know every one of you. But your job is to build the tax base in this county. You can't continue to borrow money from someplace, get grants from someplace, and expect that to last forever. We've depleted our reserves down to the point that next year, when it comes time for you all to balance your budget, you're not going to do it without going below what's required by the state. Your job is to sell our county to everybody. If I ran my business the way this county has been run for the last 20 years since I've been up here, first of all, I wouldn't be in business. That's my biggest concern. These people deserve, and the last lady that just talked, Miss Tina, you all get $44,000 a year. You work a couple of days a week, and I realize the job is there, but if you're doing your job, you should earn that kind of money. These guys go out here, and I've been part of them for 35 years, and I know what they face on the street. And, you know, I have to commend all of them to even stay around here, because when you got someone that's going to walk up here and say, I'll give you $6,000, $8,000, $9,000 to come to work for us, and we're not going to charge you this much for your insurance. You all let our insurance reserves go down. That's how it, see, this isn't a secret to them. To them, they don't understand it because they weren't part of it. But we had a surplus of insurance money, and you've been taking that for the last 3 years, so you knew this was going to happen, and it just hasn't been built up to it. They didn't realize that you all were paying most of the subsidies, the other side of it, because you were pulling out a reserve for them. Now we have no reserves, we're behind it. Now we throw it on them, and we haven't even given them a raise in the last 10 years. I just think you all need to do your job. Thank you.
Okay, before we bring Mr. Bates back up, we have two items here. Faye Sparkman, I'm not sure what you want to speak on, security and protection, if you'd come forward. And then we have Jeffrey King on a public works related item.
Sir, do you have my, I'll put it in first, Robert Nelson. I put my card in when I first walked in.
Do you have an address?
No, sir, I don't.
You'll have to give that, sir.
Protected.
Got one, no name.
Oh, come on, you can come, sir.
His address protected, Mr. Chairman.
Well, he can give his work address. Yeah.
Use your work
I got it,
address.
no name, no nothing.
Good morning.
Morning.
I have two things. You got security for us to come in this building, and it makes everybody feel good. But when we go out the door and we go to the parking lot, or we go shopping, or we go home, with the deputies that you have lost because they don't have any money to live here, what are you going to do to protect us? Right now, I can tell you, I'm married to a deputy sheriff that was in Martin County. If you were to give him a $300 to $500 to $800 a month paycheck with children to raise, we couldn't do it. So what are you going to do to make sure that we get to keep our deputies here and protect us? I don't think any of you four that voted for this realized what was going to happen. I got a phone call yesterday from a deputy who has a whole big family. She's going to take home $300 a month. How can she live on that? They're going to go to other counties, and I can tell you right now, there's openings all over. At the VA, they have openings in every department. You take a drive in Gainesville, they're putting buildings up. They have some kind of a great big mall going up out there. Lowe's 10 times the size of here. Publix 10 times the size of here. Do you want all of our people to go there? I don't. I want protection when I go home. So it's time that you all listen to what all these people are telling you. We live in the West End. What happens if we don't have any deputies out there? Have any of you thought about that? And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mr. Nelson, you can give your work address, it's fine. We just have to have it as well.
Robert Nelson, 130 Ora Griffin Boulevard,
There
here in
we go.
Palaca.
Thank you.
As I just said, my name is Robert Nelson. I've been a resident of Putnam County my entire life. I grew up here in the Putnam County school system, and I always made pretty good grades. At the age of 15, I became the first Eagle Scout from Crescent City in over 50 years. This is the highest rank achievable in the Boy Scouts of America, and it's an accomplishment that personally I'm quite proud of. When I reached this achievement, I received all sorts of congratulatory letters from people who I looked on as leaders in our community, in our state, and in our country. I even have a proclamation from the Board of County Commissioners which was presented to me by you, Mrs. Harris. In fact, you were there in person at my award ceremony that day, and I remember it distinctly because I remember thinking that I actually mattered to my community and to my government. When you presented me with this plaque, you told me that I could count on our county commissioners to help us when we were in need. I've never really been one to ask for much help, but I'm here today to hold you to your word, ma'am. I've recently learned the board has not only denied an annual cost of living increase for the sheriff's office for the 8th year in a row, but you also intend to cut the sheriff's office budget. On top of that, I've recently learned the amount of money the county contributes towards its employees' insurance is also being drastically reduced. I'm fully aware we are a poverty-stricken community, and I do not expect a law enforcement officer to become wealthy here. But I do not think that it is too much to ask for a deputy sheriff to be able to afford to live comfortably rather than counting rolled change to make it through the end of the month. I honestly believe you and the other board members have the best of intentions for our community, and I am in no way here to bash you, as I recognize you all have a very difficult job to do. What I've come here to do today is to speak to you with factual information in a way that allows for an easy understanding of the problem. The starting annual pay for a deputy sheriff in Putnam County is $29,120. If the deputy is married and has one child, this means he will bring home approximately $2,040 a month after taxes, but excluding insurance. Currently, if this deputy has his wife and child on his insurance, it will cost him $385 a month for insurance, lowering the income they actually bring home to their family down to $1,655 a month. This averages out to $55 a day of expendable income. With this proposed insurance increase and the decrease in what the county puts in, the amount a deputy will have to pay increases by 149% per month. Specifically, insurance for a deputy and their family will now cost $960.51 a month. This absurd rate means that the same deputy will now only bring home $1,079.49 per month, which equates to $35.98 per day. To put this into perspective, I'd like to point out the state has a mandated per diem or meal allowance rate. Meal allowance is what a government employer is required to pay its employee to purchase food if their business requires them to travel out of town. The state of Florida mandates a meal allowance of $36 per day. That means the deputy you call to save your life, the deputy you expect to run into gunfire to protect your family, could quite literally be making less money than what the state says is required for one person to eat. These figures don't even account for bills like power and water, much less a cell phone, internet, or a trip to the beach. How can you expect to hire any kind of quality employee when they find out they will earn less than what it costs to eat for a month? In the interest of fairness, I am a deputy sheriff, so you may think my interest is slightly skewed, but I'd like to correct that assumption. Thankfully, I am personally in a position slightly better than the majority of the other guys behind me. I'm fortunate enough that I currently hold the rank of sergeant, giving me a slightly higher rate of pay than most of the deputies at the sheriff's office. My child and his mother are not on my insurance, as her employer provides better insurance than mine, so I'm not here today for my own benefit. I'm here today as a concerned citizen of Putnam County, a citizen who is genuinely concerned for the men and women that allow me to sleep peacefully at night. The vast majority of the men and women at the sheriff's office who have had to stay awake after a 12-hour shift to roll change so they can eat the next day. Ms. Harris, I beg you and all of the other board members, go back to the table and try to find a way to make things better for the men and women who faithfully serve this community. I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir. Jeff King, are you here? Oh, there we go. Yep. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name's Jeff King. I'm the owner of North Florida Emulsions. I've been a business owner here for about 15 years. My taxes on my business have gone up every year, actually. But the reason I'm here first is to thank the county for all the work that I've gotten with the county. I've done over $8 million worth of work with the county over that time period. I've worked with the county through thick and thin. I bleed for this county. I'm on the job every day, every minute of every job I have with the county. But the second reason I'm here is there's a new Dirt to Pay program out. It just came out yesterday. I've completed the last 4 out of 5 Dirt to Pay programs for the county successfully. I'm actually at the tail end of completing the 5th one, and actually today I think I'm going to get some change orders in addition to that, which I'm greatly thankful for. But my concern is that the language in the new Dirt to Pay program precludes me from bidding the project that's coming out, because it states, and last year's program did not state this, that the prime contractor along with the subcontractor have to be Florida DOT qualified. Even if you're pre-qualified in sodding or seeding, you have to be Florida DOT pre-qualified in something to bid this job as a prime contractor. Now, I've bid the last 5 contracts as the prime, and I have subbed out the paving portion, which is the blacktop end of it, to someone who is Florida DOT qualified to pave. I have completed I do all the clearing and grubbing and all the dirt work. This new contract that came out right now states that you have to have it somewhere. Now, I did get a heads up that this was coming down the road. I am trying to get my Florida DOT pre-qual. It requires a $30,000 financial audit just to then have them look at your application. So I am in the process of finalizing that, and then I have to submit the application to the state in order to get certified, in order to do work at the county that I've been doing for the last 10, 15 years. So what I'm asking the commissioners to do is ask the Public Works Director to put an addendum out stating that the prime contractor, just as long as they have experience in doing this work, does not have to be Florida DOT certified, but their subcontractor who does the paving work does have to do it. So that's what I'm asking.
Hold that thought. Mr. Tompkins, if you could come up, and my question to you, Mr. Tompkins, is that statutorily mandated from the state, these new requirements?
If you do DOT work, you are set by statute, you have to be DOT qualified. DOT has different qualifications. It's a quality assurance program that assures the state and other local municipalities and cities that the contractors are able to perform the work that they are bidding on. It's a quality assurance program that most other counties and cities have adopted to utilize that. And like I said, Mr. King's been aware of this, that this was coming. We are not precluding him from bidding. He needs, get his DOT certification to do it. Other counties around us require it. City of Jacksonville requires it. It's nothing new. It's been on the books for many, many years. I feel like it is an asset to the county to have this requirement, make sure we do get good contractors and people that are qualified to do the work. Most of the asphalt contractors that Mr. King uses, they're all DOT qualified for the asphalt work, but DOT also has qualifications for grading, earthwork, and those types of work that is also a very large part of the work that is being performed. And I am a firm believer in the DOT certification.
Commissioners, questions? Mr. Flagg.
Amen.
Anybody else? Okay.
Thank you.
Can I just say one thing? The answer, or the question you asked, Press, was, is it required that in order to bid this job, you have to be DOT certified to do it? And the answer is technically no, because you're not using DOT funds to do this work. So is that not correct, Press? The answer technically is...
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Okay.
Press answered your question. DOT certified. We've had issues in times past with certifications and with quality assurance. And if our Public Works Director has responded, Mr. King, comply. End of statement.
We're going to end it right there, Mr. King. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Bates, if we could get you back to the podium.
Mr. Chairman, will you assure us that a person that didn't fill out a card that want to talk about this subject, because this should be the summary, let's make sure there's no other comments behind his.
Okay, is there anybody else wishing to speak on this subject of insurance before we go into the summary?
I'm Roxana Regan-Weeks. I'll apologize for my dress. I was on my way to the Springs, and I had to stop by and see what the sentiments and comments were here. From what I'm hearing and the questions I've asked and what I've been told, the commissioners, the insurance carrier, Mr. Bates's company, Bates, Hewitt & Floyd, they've been working on this since April. The insurance fund had a deficit last year. This year it's expected to be $1.6 million. And knowing this, I know there were some federal regulation changes also, but knowing this, you've had months to do this, and then Mr. Bates has stated that they're doing an actuary table on this that should be ready soon. These people are required to enroll next month, if I'm not mistaken. You gave nobody any warning. You've seen this coming. I just can't understand why the men and women that serve at Putnam County Sheriff's Office especially regardless of the other employees, but especially the law enforcement, they haven't received raises in years. Y'all make double what they make. And every one of you has an outside business. This isn't your income. This is just extra money for you. And that's why it's so important that you look out for people like this. You've known this was coming. Mr. Bates, I'm told, he was working on this for all this time. There were several other companies. My understanding was that all the constitutional officers had the choice to choose for their own employees where they could obtain insurance. The only person that did so as a constitutional officer was Ms. Criswell for the school district. And she obtained insurance through Jacksonville up there, United Benefits Advisors. And I just don't understand why, you're gonna do an insurance committee now. She's had that going all year. The one question, I don't know if I'll be able to stay to hear this answer, because I know you're not going to give me an answer at this point. But in this discussion, I would like you to explain to people the insurance reserve fund, the surplus fund. What you didn't have in large claims in past years is basically a profit that the insurance and the county split, and you put your portion into the reserve fund. Is that correct? Okay. So the last couple of years, and then you use that insurance fund to subsidize the employees' payments. That's where you get the money from that you've been paying the last couple of years. So they haven't had to have such high premiums. So now your insurance fund is depleted because you've had a lot of claims apparently. And I was told that, and this is what you need to answer to the people, that if you did not renew with the Bates Agency and their carriers, that this rebate, this profit sharing that y'all do, you would not have received it had you not renewed with them. Now, that's what Ms. Criswell has claimed, and that she had to give the money back because she went with another carrier, an agency. But to me, that's like extortion. If you got your money, if you got your profit credit for last year, you should be able to get that money regardless of whether you renew with that agent or not. You've already earned that money, and that's what was needed to offset these employees. So thank you.
Ms. Weeks, you didn't give your address for the record when you came up.
4 Loring Street, St. Augustine, Florida.
Thank you.
I'm going to recess the meeting. When we come back, Mr. Bates, there, you moved up. I'm going to put you at this podium, and then anybody with questions will come to this one. 5-minute break, restroom, and then we'll reconvene. Come on.
My name is Nick Vieira, 130 Ori Griffin Boulevard. I just want to be another voice heard. I'm not from Putnam County. I moved down here a little over 5 years ago from Jacksonville. I actually had the opportunity to go work at the courthouse in Jacksonville full-time, but I got a full-time job opportunity here. I had family here, and I decided Putnam County is where I wanted to be because I didn't want to be a number. I wanted to be a name and a face. Since then, I've married, I have a child, I have a home, I've homesteaded here, and I love this county. I don't want to leave this county. I don't believe with the nights that I work, 12, 14, sometimes 16 hours, that I should have to sacrifice anything more to my family and pay. I can't afford $960. I can't. There's no way I could do it. And I don't believe that going to a lesser plan is fair to my family, to my 19-month-old daughter, to my 30-year-old wife. I don't see that that's a fair deal for what I make it at $29,120. I just ask that you guys do everything in your power to look at this and help us in any way. It's not just me. I mean, all these guys over here, they are here just like everybody's told you because they love it here. It's not because they're making a pile of money. It's because they love this county. We're just asking for a little bit of help. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, on a break. We'll be back in 5 minutes. All right. Diane, you're good, okay? County Commission meeting, Tuesday, July 26, 2016. The format we'll use here, if some individual questions that our sheriff's office had, is we have Mr. Bates at the podium. Remember, he just has a large working knowledge of insurance. He is our agent, and you know, the purpose of he being at the podium is to answer some unanswered questions, hopefully. He's not a battering ram or anything else. This problem, is said many times this morning, is very large, goes all the way up to the federal level, and we're looking for answers at the local level. So in between there, we have to come together. Okay, anybody wishing to speak this morning, please include your address and your name at the podium, and we're going to start right now. Who would like to go first with questions for Mr. Bates pertaining to insurance?
Mr. Chairman, if he could answer the question that was already asked about,
That's
I
a
think
good one
that
to
some
start with.
people think that the county is doing business directly with his insurance agency, and I think that he bid it, and he can drill down on the reality that he is the Florida Blue representative through a totally different process that has nothing to do directly with Putnam County.
Exactly right.
We do that.
We'll do that. Before we start, though, Benji, I want Miss Allen, if you could come up and give a summary and explanation at the same time of the reserves, how they got as large as they did during the real estate bubble, and what we did with them since then. I think
Her
there's
over there too, so she can face the audience as well.
What's that?
You know, her over there.
No, right here's good.
Right here.
Thank you. I didn't want to put you on the spot, but just there's some confusion there, and we need to explain that it was a luxury to have a $16 million reserve.
Right. As
Take
far
it
as
from
the
there.
reserves go, I'm not really involved in the budgetary process as much, but I can tell you from when I came on board here, the reserves were higher than most places, and I'm not sure who the best person would be to speak to that.
If Ms. Propel or Mr. Leary, if you would like to, you could do it from your seat too. I didn't see a microphone in front of you, is why I asked you up here.
I can only surmise, because I haven't gone back and looked, but I can only surmise that the county had a formula and they were taking in money and they were getting some type of per share agreement, and interest rates were favorable, and it just grew because of the money coming in
And low claim rates.
and low claim rates.
Yes. And basically grew to $16 million.
I don't remember the exact number.
Mr. Leary?
Well, that wasn't the insurance reserve fund, that was the.
Just our general
That
fund.
was the general fund reserve.
But in the insurance reserves, what was our average? And it was above average for a while and then came
I
down.
don't know the numbers in the insurance reserve, it was a couple of $1 million at one point.
But we applied those funds back to our employees to offset escalating cost in the policies over the past few years.
When it was at that point, that's when management made the recommendation to the board that the insurance reserves could be used to offset some of the insurance costs because we weren't in a position to consider cost of living adjustments, so the insurance reserves could be used as a subsidy to offset premiums. And that decision was made by the board at the recommendation of management approximately, I think it was about 4 years ago now. And that's been an ongoing practice for the last 4 years, until such time as we have arrived at the point where we are now, where the insurance reserves are depleted because you can't spend it and have it too.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, that's good, Ms. Allen. I just wanted to show that
Okay,
part right
thank
there.
you.
Okay, we had some questions before we broke. Benji, do you want to address any of those, or do you?
I can address Mr. Flagg. Bates and Floyd, we're an independent insurance agency. So we represent many hundreds of different companies. We have one unique relationship with Florida Blue in that we're a contracted general agent. What does that mean? That means that contractually on the individual market, anyone over 65 or under 65, we are required to sell the Florida Blue individual product to that person. We're the only one in the county. For the past 4 years, Florida Blue has been, now this is outside of group, this is the individual. Florida Blue, the first year and now the second year, they're going to be the only carrier offering coverage in Putnam County. No other carrier is for the individual on the marketplace. So we're a contract general agent for those individuals. We can provide that service. Again, that is just on the individual side. On the group side, such as our other clients, we represent the Aetnas of the world, the United Healthcare, Florida Blue, there's Humana, there's many ancillary products, there's many dental companies, vision companies, all around. We've moved in the past 30 days, we've moved 2 groups from Florida Blue to United Healthcare. So we're not married to any carrier. We work with our clients to get them the best plan from the best care at the best rate. But we do have that unique CGA relationship in that. In Putnam County, we currently employ 27 employees. We are the largest insurance agency. We are the insurance agency with the most knowledge on group benefits. We're probably the only agency in Putnam County that has group plans over 50 or over 100. So that's where we are in this marketplace in Putnam County locally.
The question also that keeps rising is, did we go out to bid? If you would, Benji.
Miss Al, okay, there, and again, as you're, I'm not able, there's strict statutes to the purchasing of group health. If I were just to go out and contact a carrier and for them to come in, you're probably gonna have attorneys that's happened here locally before. There's strict statutes to the purchase of group health insurance. I have to look back, my father's out of town, and so we work with the county, but ultimately the county makes that decision on when to go out to bid, and we facilitated that process, wrote the RFP, handled the responses, helped with the rankings.
What I wanted to get there.
But now there's statutes that allow the pooling of insurance. So Ms. Allen has talked to FMIT, Florida League of Cities, and they've got statutes that avoid the other statutes with the purchase of governmental group insurance. And Ms. Allen has done that, and she could speak to that.
Well, some years we don't want to go out to bid.
No, sir. I
want to explain why we would not choose.
Well, just a little overview. If you look at, and I excuse, I don't have a PowerPoint with me. If you look at the state of Florida, Florida Blue represents 71% of the counties in the state. When you go from Volusia County north, every surrounding county, that's the carrier. We looked at what's happened in the last, I think 45 days. You've had Marion County, you've had Nassau County, you've had St. John's Water Management go out to bid. And Florida Blue won those bids. As we looked at it this year, claims data actually got worse throughout the process. So the numbers that you present to those carriers from the time of the initial talks till the final, they actually got worse. Those weren't taken into credit for your final rates. We looked at the original data presented back in May and took that into the final calculation. But in Putnam County, you've got really 3, and I call it 2 carriers. You've got Aetna, United, and Florida Blue. Aetna, when you look at a disruption report on their doctors and providers, they're here, but their network, it's getting better.
Explain that's referred to as the network locally, if you would break that down.
To me, there's 2 parts of a network. The first part is what doctors they represent, what hospitals, so you can go to those doctors, those hospitals, and those facilities. That's part 1. The second part of the network is the strength of that network, i.e., every carrier, every doctor, every hospital has contracts. So if you go to the hospital for a covered service, what is that company, what is that doctor charging you? And it can be different. You could go with one, and I'm not saying, one insurance company, their cost might be $100. Insurance company B, their cost would be $90. Well, that means that for those claims that the county is ultimately paying for, in that case, it's 10% less. So when you look at network, it's the number of facilities in the state of Florida, out of the state of Florida, number of doctors, number of facilities, and then it's also the contracts and the strength of that network, i.e., ultimately it's claims. So what are those claims going to cost, and could carrier A or B be cheaper in their claims cost than their competition? So ultimately, what that leaves us with here, we've got, the Florida Blue, and then we've got United, and then also Aetna as the three choices.
Okay. With that, anybody would like to ask, please come to the podium, sir. Your name and address for the record, and the podium is yours.
My name is John Zager. My address is 130 Ori Griffin Boulevard.
Okay.
And I didn't understand a word he said. And my question is this, it's yes or no. Did we go out for a bid this year?
No, sir.
No, sir.
You did not? Now, I guess my next question is, why?
He just explained that, sir, but if we can break it down.
Could you explain it that somebody who's...
Yes, sir. Ultimately, as we said, we saw an initial indication of 25 to 30% increase. We contacted the staff and said, here's what we're looking at. And we had that discussion. We contacted, they looked, and they were making, that was their internal decision on the counties.
They is who?
Florida Blue.
Miss Allen.
We met with HR staff and said.
No, you said their decision. Who is they?
We have worked with HR staff here at the county.
Human Resources.
Human Resources.
So Human Resources made the decision not to go out for bids. Is that
But the projection was coming from Florida Blue, correct?
Yes.
30%. That's why I asked him a moment ago that sometimes when you get that high projection from your carrier, and in this case, they cover almost 100% of North Florida, it's wiser sometimes not to go out to bid.
And I think what you just said was, you didn't make that decision. He didn't make that decision. Human Resources made that decision. Is that a correct statement?
With guidance from our insurer. You have to analyze what the market's doing and then act.
Again, I'm just asking a simple question.
I know, and we're answering, sir. We're trying.
Did we boil it down to, you didn't make the decision, he didn't make the decision, Human Resources made the decision? Would that be a correct
Well,
statement?
there has to be someone who's an expert that deals in insurance. We all have different departments. We depend on Human Resources to gather it and come back to us.
So then you made the decision.
The recommendation starts with staff and ultimately comes to us. The issue that
The
we
buck stops
have,
here.
the issue that we have is that there are not other insurance companies who are jumping on the Putnam County bandwagon to insure Putnam Countyans.
That wasn't my question.
No. What I'm saying to you is, when you ask why didn't we go back out to bid, the options are two other entities. And those two entities, their product is nowhere near the comparison of what we have now. So all of that information is transmitted to us through our human resource person, but that individual represents and recommends. And so as a result of that, we didn't have the option of getting any better benefit for our employees by going somewhere else, because those individuals, their product would cost us more if they decided that they would insure us. And all of them, Florida Blue, United, Aetna, all of them want to know, what is your history, what is the experience? And these insurance companies, they've got the CEO sitting up there making these decisions. And I'm sure everyone, especially in the state of Florida, have dealt with an insurance crisis, whether it was health, whether it was homeowners, or whether it was even auto. those companies are pulling out of Florida. And again, that's something that's above our pay grade to understand why the market is not open for all of these companies to compete to get the business in this county, and it's just not happening.
Sir, I didn't ask why you made the decision.
Mm-hmm.
I asked who made the decision.
Ultimately, it's us that made the decision.
The board.
Yes, sir.
That's all I need to know.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else? Questions for Mr. Bates? We'll take this gentleman, then you next, sir.
Emmett Merritt, 130 Ori Griffin Boulevard. My question
Okay, in the
to
mic.
you is...
In the microphone, please, sir.
Talk to the mic, sir.
My question to you is, when you do the analysis, is it county-wide analysis for claims?
No, sir.
For
It's-
people,
It's
I mean-
this group. It's the enrolled employees.
But all of Putnam County?
Employees.
Employees.
Yes,
That's what
sir.
I'm getting at, employees. A lot of the county employees that work in other other departments are obviously older. The sheriff's office is a lot younger. Would that affect the claims rate if the sheriff's office was separate?
It could.
Could
what
you do
would-
that?
Sir?
Could you do that?
Yes. Again, let's just, there's pros and cons to that. One of the pros is, as a whole, collectively, the county has the entire, all the resident, or
But
the,
most of the county employees are sheriff's office, so.
about a third of them. But a 600-life group is going to have a lot more say in negotiating than a 200-person group. Secondly, what we could see is I mean, it's an option, and there's pros and cons. It could be less, it could be more. It could be the sheriff's department might save 5%, while the other 200 and 400 employees, they have a 15 to 20% rate increase. I don't know. Yes, it can be done. There's organizations that work with the sheriff's departments that do it and specialize that just within sheriff's departments.
And you said that you guys were looking at self-insuring? I heard you say something that earlier.
Just an analysis of the pros and cons and a projection of what would be the impact of the county if it made that decision to do that. It's just an analysis and a recommendation to the board.
To the board, I come from a much bigger sheriff's office that I did 20 years at, and the county commission tried to raise our insurance, and we self-insured, and our sheriff's office funded ourselves enough that we paid a 25-year deputy insurance for the rest of his life, and employees were free, and family. Our insurance was free, and we outsourced it ourselves. But we had to come up with a lump sum of money and keep our own funding. The only problem was we had to keep healthy people, which the only thing we instilled was a health plan through the sheriff's office that you had to do a physical agility every year. But our rates were unbelievably low through Florida Blue, and we were self-insured. And it devastated the other county employees, and that's something that this could work to the point is that if we could back out, we back out, it's going to be detrimental to county employees also.
You're correct.
With the size of the agency that you,
It was Charlotte County Sheriff's Office.
How
It was
many?
the same size as St. John's.
Yeah.
the law of supply and demand, Mr. Chairman, comes into play with everything that we are addressing here. And we do know that we've got skyrocketing costs. We know we have zero reserves. And I'm on point with finding alternatives, and I don't know what all of those alternatives are. And I mean, these individuals who have come here, who serve and protect us, they're to be commended for coming. There's not an issue with coming and shining additional light on what we would consider a crisis in the insurance. Just because it was stated over and over and over that it was coming, now reality is upon us. And so the question again is not on them. The burden is not on them. The burden is on us. And there's not a whole lot of options that must be dealt with here. We do have some facts. Like I say, cost is going up. Reserves are gone. When it comes down to taking care of our employees, the employees that are under the direct jurisdiction of the Board of County Commissioners, their administration does handle that. But each of the constitutional officers, according to Florida statute, have the authority to set the salaries of their respective staff. And I know, again, at the end of the day, the funding comes through us, but each of the constitutional officers need to make sure that they're maximizing their dollars. And I know it's always a struggle to balance technology and personnel. That's a tough balance for everybody that's concerned. And I don't want any of our employees, and especially those who are here that are presenting themselves to us today, to think that there's an insensitivity or a lack of love or a lack of concern for taking care of them. But I also believe that the task force idea is something that we need to figure out. We have an emergency, no pun intended, but we have a 911, and how do we move us forward as it relates to that? And I don't want to get into the deliberations too much until you call for that, but I just think that at the end of the day, it's not us and y'all, it's we. We are family in this county. And at the end of the day, tough decisions have to be made there, and the decisions that are made here impacts every tax-paying citizen, entrepreneur, private citizen, etc. And we are tired of being a training ground. We're tired of being a playground. We're tired of individuals taking Putnam County for granted. But there is a such thing as the economic formula is certainly out of balance when it comes down to how do we fix it. We want to hold taxes down, but we need quality services. How do you do it? How do you balance that? And that's the big question that I know we face. It's easy today to give a pay raise to every county employee. It's easy. It's just a decision that has to be made. But the consequences of that decision means that taxpayers are going to pay higher taxes. We've got a group right now that's going around saying we're tax and spend, tax and spend. There are some necessities even in an economically challenged county. So either you pay now or you pay later. And in the wisdom of those who preceded us, using reserves in their thought processes was a way to cause the employees not to bear the burden. But when you come further down the road, only to discover now there's zero to deal with the crisis. It's our baby. We can't look back because yesterday is gone and tomorrow is not promised. So what we're hearing today, what's being said and what's being presented, we've got to make the tough decisions. And if our citizens say, for the benefit of maintaining quality law enforcement personnel, who I have a special place in my heart for, because I know that the challenges of today that they're dealing with, that these county lines does not stop these individuals who either of a weak mind or they just are criminals, period, homeland terrorists. And so whatever we need to do, we just need to count up the cost, because in everything and every decision we make, yes, there are alternatives, there are benefits, but there are also consequences. And we need to look at the holistic approach to this thing and make a decision. And as far as I'm concerned, it's not a political decision, it's a necessary decision. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Commissioner Harris, floor is yours.
Thank you. I think one thing that's very important that not much has been said about it, and I think we need to clarify it. We are offering on the core plan, a new core plan, and on that plan, we are paying 100% of the employee's insurance. And we are paying 75% to add their families on that plan. Plus, we beefed up that plan to make it better than it used to be. And I would like for you, Mr. Bates, to define the difference between the two plans so we know what we're looking at.
Ms. Harris, you're referring to the old core versus the new core?
No, we have a new core plan now. I want to know what the difference of the new core plan, we're paying 100% of the employees and 75%. Okay, of the family plan, they only pay 25% of the cost.
And then she's going to compare it to the
And
buyout
then there's
plan.
a step-up plan, they were calling it the Cadillac plan, and that's optional, that's a choice. So I want to know what the difference is in that choice. Is it worth paying that extended fee? Or is the new core plan, since it's improved, maybe it's going to do? Maybe it would work.
That was my question. You said the old core plan didn't cover as many things as the new core plans. Am I right?
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's what I want
so
him to tell us.
get it
if
up.
we've changed the core plan, what changes have we made and what's the upgrade in those changes?
We're going to go through that
That's
right
what I'm
now with
asking.
Mr. Bates as soon as he's set up with IT there. Take your time.
And I guess while we're getting that put together, let me just say this. We really were not aware that we were going to have this big increase. We thought we were going to be the same. And until we got the analysis of what the costs were, and we had some very big costs for some medical problems that some of our family had, and we've got to take that into account, and it affects everything. So that's why we have insurance, really to cover the big things so that you don't go bankrupt and so that you can get the health care that you need. So I'd like for him to, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am. If you can see that, and again, Commissioner Harris did speak on some of that, but, what is new, there are the core benefit package. And that means that the individual employee, they get their dental, vision, life, all covered at no cost to them. And then the county contributes 75% to the employee spouse, the family, the different tiers. This same amount is then fixed and applies to the buy-up. That's a different change in the funding of the plan. But the individual employee, at zero cost to them, is provided with medical, dental, vision, and life insurance. As I talked about again, there was House Bill 221. That changes the way that you're treated when you go to an in-network facility, and then you're treated by out-of-network doctors. Now it is all combined. So if you go to the emergency room, you're not going to get one bill for the ER and then an out-of-network bill for a radiologist or one of their physicians. It's all treated as in-network. The county is also moving to a complete online benefits administration system, communication portal to have all this information up to date with videos, examples, plan analysis, plan comparison tools, wellness surveys, financial resources, and all that will launch on August the 1st. So when we looked at what was going on with those core benefits, and we heard the initial complaints, and I understand, I have a young daughter, she just had tubes, we go to the doctor, it seems like every week. 6 office visits for the year at that copay amount, that's not gonna work for somebody with kids. That's not gonna work with somebody that has to go to a specialist maybe every other month, or that goes to their doctor and then sees multiple doctors. Secondly, we also said, well, the ER, well, that's great, but we had to go 3 times. And yeah, there was a copayment for the first 2, but then that last one was very expensive. So we looked at those. We also looked at the prescription drugs. Now, why prescription drugs get a lot of attention, and we talk about that a lot, just for your information, when we look at the total cost of a healthcare plan, the package or how we offer you prescription drugs benefit, that is anywhere from 15 to 25% of the total cost of the healthcare plan. So when we ran the numbers and we looked at the total number of prescriptions written for all the employees on the plan, 94% of the prescriptions were generic only. So it's okay, well, if 94% of people are using a generic only drug, let's reward them and offer them a plan that has generic only coverage. So, and that was able to save the cost and keep the cost down. And then we kept the buy-up plan that has those prescription drugs benefits. But we also heard, okay, well, what happens if I get cancer? What happens if this happens throughout the year and I'm on this core plan? What happens to me? So what we did this year, we have generic choices. So that means that your generic drugs are still covered at the $10. In addition, if you get, now this is not every brand name drug, every medicine out there. There's a 59-page formulary that we've already sent out that lists those drugs. But if you get HIV, if you get cancer, if you have diabetes, then those drugs are covered as part of the generic choices. So that's also new with the core benefit enhancements. The core plan has many co-payments. And again, a co-payment, that's a specified dollar amount that you pay for a payment. So there's no deductible. It's a straight amount. When you go for one of these services, this is what you're going to pay. To see a family physician, it's $30. And these are all in-network. And again, when we look at overall the county's utilization, I think is 96 or 98% in-network utilization. Really, the only people in the county that were going out of network were whenever they had that issue that House Bill 221 cleaned up, where they were in network, but they were treated by an out-of-network doctor at an in-network facility. So that was changed. So if to see a specialist, it's $55. Maternity office visits, $30. Again, preventative coverage, checkups, blood work, analysis. There's a whole list of things that are deemed preventative. Those are zero cost. To go to the ER, there's a facility bill of $300. If you need to do testing in your physician's office, that's a $30 copayment. And then an urgent care, MedX, St. John's Urgent Care, some of those similar things in other counties, that's a $60 copayment. And then also a $55 outpatient rehab facility copayment. So all those on the core plan have a copayment. When you look at that, the deductible is the $5,000 for an individual, the $10,000 for a family. And in a couple slides, I'll compare this to the buy-up plan as well. The max out-of-pocket, again, that's what I look at. That's the worst-case scenario, that if once you hit that point, you pay more, the insurance company completely takes over. $6,360 for the individual, $12,700 for the family. And then there's co-insurance of 30%, and I'll give an example of that upcoming. So again, as I talked about it, but to reiterate the fact, with generic choices, generic medications are covered, and then also select brand medications for diabetes, cancer, and HIV are coverage. How much will drugs cost? Generic drugs and diabetic medications is a $10 copayment. And then preferred drugs, depending on where they are, it could be 20%, but more than likely it's going to be a minimum of $50 and a maximum of $200 with this plan, depending on where they fall in the formulary. So again, how do we know what drugs cost? A couple tools. There's care consultants that are available at a number, or there's a website to log into. You can actually compare the drug prices. There's also another website called GoodRx. You're able to type in that name brand prescription, the zip code, and figure out to get an idea what those drugs cost there. The county also has a county-wide prescription discount program that's available not only to the employees, but also all residents. It's a free discount prescription card that could help in lowering some of those costs with the prescription drugs. Again, we talk about this a lot. Shop and compare. Just like many things, there's different prices. So if we say a generic drug is $10, I know many of you have gone and got a generic drug filled for $0, for $4. Using those resources, we can look at what providers, what pharmacies, what they charge for those drugs, and find the best price for those drugs. Know many people, they always went to pharmacy X, and they looked around and they went to a different pharmacy, and they saved sometimes $300 a month in prescription drug costs. So there are options to do that. Again, we have tools and resources. We have numbers we can call. We can talk live one-on-one with somebody to figure out what that is. And there's also many online tools. This was an example we ran with imaging, an MRI. We assume, well, if I have an MRI and I go anywhere, that the cost is going to cost me the same. Wasn't the case. There were 3 different facilities we looked at. As you can see, facility A was $797, facility B $689, and then lastly facility C at $1,569. So one example of cost savings with those plans. Now we can compare the core plan and the buy-up plan side by side. We can start first with the deductibles, and again, it's individual and family. So the individual on the core plan, it has a higher deductible. It's $5,000 versus $3,000 on the core, or the buy-up, excuse me. When we look at the family, that gap is narrowed. It's $10,000 on the core and then $9,000 on the family. So a very close difference in deductibles. And then max out-of-pockets, again, it's higher on the individual, but the max out-of-pocket for the family is the same on the core and the buy-up. They all have office visits. Those benefits are richer in the buy-up plan. whereas you're going to pay $30 for the core, you're going to pay half of that for the buy-up at 15, and then you've got your specialist at 55 versus 25. Urgent care, they have the same co-payments. Again, that buy-up plan, it's richer benefits. You're going to pay half the price to go to that urgent care. And really, when you take that out of it, you have two plans, very similar deductibles. When you look through the benefits, they all have co-payments at the same points, although the amount you pay is different. Ultimately, these plans are very close. The biggest discrepancy is going to be the brand name drug coverage. Because again, even though we've enhanced it, it's still a generic choices. It does not have a full name brand drug card. So the buy-up plan has that. It's $10 for a generic. It's a one-time annually $100 brand name deductible. And then depending on where that drug falls on the formulary for the brand name drugs, if it's a non-preferred, it's $50 every fill, or it could be $80. So really those last two, after we looked at them and brought them, they're very, very close together. But really the deciding point is going to be the prescription drug coverage or without the prescription drug coverage. In addition, the county also has many other resources. I know someone mentioned beforehand a situation with their wife. You know, there is a Medicare Advantage plan that person could be eligible for, great benefits. Once an employee reaches age 65, there's a group Medicare plan, which has amazing benefits. There's a flexible spending account that you're able to put upfront 100% tax-free money to help pay for some of these out-of-pocket expenses. The county offers an array of supplementary plans that pay you. You go to the doctor, you get sick, you get injured, it puts money in your pocket. Because again, we all know we have insurance, but there's still out-of-pocket costs with those. So we tried to do a quick summary comparing those two plans. And we've narrowed them down as close as we can so we can offer similar benefits to the employees on those two plans. And it is a vastly different plan than the plan that was offered last year, because we heard the complaints, we saw what didn't work, and we went into work and we fixed that. And again, that same core plan, you know, I think it's a win-win for what it offers, and it's offered this year to the county at no additional cost. So that's what we presented, and ultimately, you know, to the board and to the employees as that new core plan, if you will.
Go ahead,
Thank you.
Commissioner Harris.
No, I don't have any questions. I'm pleased that they're as close as they are and that the differences aren't that much.
I mean, I can do an example. Say, you go to the hospital, you get a $3,500 hospital bill. On the core plan, lost it. On the core plan, you have a $5,000 deductible, so you have to meet that first. So you would pay $3,500. Or excuse me, you would pay $3,500. On the buy-up plan, it has a lower deductible, so you meet your deductible first. The deductible is $3,000. You pay 100% up into that deductible. And then I said, as there's co-insurance, the co-insurance on that plan is 20%. So you're responsible for 20% of the bill once the deductible's met until you reach your max out of pocket. So on that plan, as you can see, if it's a $3,500 admit, that's typical for most 1 to 2.5 day stays, which is what most employees visit. You know, both plans, it's $3,500 with the core, $3,150 for the buy-up. That's real close. But then when we also have to think about is the additional premium. I believe the buy-up on the individual, that's an additional $200 a month in premium. So again, you're able to go 2 months of saving that premium, and you know, for over 12 months, that's $2,000 in additional premium. Are those benefits worth that additional money? The same thing looking at the family plan. We've got the core benefits at $300 a month for the family versus $900. That's a $600 variance. That's a big variance. Do we need those additional benefits on the buy-up plan? And for some, it will make sense. Unfortunately, others, it's not going to work, so they're going to have to remain on the buy-up. But that's an example there. Another example, if it was another hospital admit and the member received a $5,500 bill, the core plan, the total cost of the member is $5,150, whereas the buy-up plan it'd be 3,500. So you're going to start to see more savings with the buy-up plan as you have higher bills, higher utilization with that. And those were just some examples we did to compare. Because again, for most employees, they're going to utilize many co-payments, which are fixed, and then we see some hospital admits and or imaging to where they get into the deductible plus co-insurance. So we just kind of wanted to give an example of two different bills and how each plan would respond.
Very good. Commissioner Pelser.
Mr. Bates, am I correct in assuming that the core plan from last year is different than this year's proposed?
Yes, sir.
And it is a step up?
Yes, sir. Well, it's deductible.
I'm sorry, I don't mean step up in money. I mean step up in benefits and coverages.
Yes, sir. I would say the pros overweigh the cons. I mean, the deductible change, we want to be clear on that. But yes, sir, the pros overweigh the cons. The fixed visits, the 6 visits per the individual are gone. We've enhanced the generic drug coverage. So overall, it is a better plan, much better plan than the core plan of last year.
Okay, that was the point I was getting out. The people that felt like they needed the buy-up plan because it offered things that to their particular situation, they needed, possibly the core plan might fill in that void?
Yes,
for certain folks, not everyone, but for certain.
For a large majority, it will. There's still going to be a minority that need the prescription drug benefits and can't make that change. But for the majority of the members, it's a very viable option.
My follow-up to that is everyone aware that change is. It's not the same old core plan, that it could have some upgrades and up stages in it that could help you to your individual situation.
Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We buy insurance for the what if this happens to me and what if that happens to me, and we want to know we're going to be taken care of. Look, in me comparing the two plans, and I'm a little bit more privy to insurance than most, but I did get out of the health insurance years ago because I saw where it was going to, but our deductibles are going to double. Is that correct? We're basically going to go from $2,500 to $5,000 and $7,500 to $10,000 and $5,000 to $10,000 out of network and $15,000 to $30,000. So we're going to see a double right there on that. One of my questions was what I've been hearing about, and this is not, let me just talk to you about what you can do. Does that plan, the core plan, the 5302, does it qualify for the health savings account?
No,
with
sir.
a high deductible?
No, sir.
How much more of a deductible that needs to happen for a
It's
health
not the
savings?
deductible there, Mr. Harvey. It's the fact that there's copay. We would have to remove all copayments.
Okay.
So that means that we could introduce you could do a $1,500 deductible individual healthcare plan would qualify for an HSA.
Okay.
But that individual member is going to have to meet 100% of that outside of preventative. Okay. So that if you went to the doctor and that doctor bill was, where we've got a copay of $30, it could be $80, $100, $300. There's no first dollar coverage on the HSA account until the deductible is met outside of preventative.
But the idea of the health savings account is to drive down the cost of the insurance and fund the health savings account so you can offset those prices as going to the doctor. So, and you get a tax benefit by doing that.
Yes, sir.
So,
I think unfortunately, health savings, they're great, but they're great for a certain demographic that has disposable income. To put someone in a plan with a $1,500 or $2,000 first dollar coverage,
right,
and they don't have any money to fund it,
right,
they have coverage, but then they get a $3,000 bill. What do we do? At least with these other plans with co-payments, hey, I can pay the $30 here. So I think they're great, and they work well when the employer can put some seed money or help fund that through initiatives or incentives, and or the population for that plan has the disposable income to take advantage of the tax savings and fund that HSA, so when they need that money for care, it's there. So, and it would work for some, but for a lot of the people, and I think the ones we've heard from, I don't know if that would be the best recommendation of a plan via the situation.
Mr. Bates, let me say this too. I appreciate you standing up here taking the heat. I've been there before. I know how it feels, so I do appreciate it. At our last workshop, we talked about forming the insurance committee, and I asked you that question. What do you see the scope of work that that committee would be doing? And I'll tell you what I see, and then maybe you can, I see everything on the table. I see all minds coming together. I see different plans. I see self-funding as an option with the stopgaps. I see all that happening. Is that what you see also?
Yes, sir. I think it's, first of all, it's going to, let's educate everyone and let's really understand what we have. Let's understand insurance. Let's understand the carriers. Let's have the care. Let's talk to them. Let's talk one-on-one with the providers, with these, let's put a face to Florida Blue. Let's put a face to these people. Let's talk about that. Let's look at what's offered. We're not going to get too deep, but let's look at what's going on with utilization. Let's look at plans.
Right.
Let's do this. And then ultimately, have that committee make recommendations to the board. And I think the biggest thing about this committee would be the dissemination of information throughout all departments in the county. So we've got representatives on this committee from the Sheriff's Department, from Public Works, from the tax collector, the property collector. So, whenever it's met and it says, okay, here's what our rates are, here's how we came about it, hey, the core plan's different, that information can be communicated faster, more effectively to everyone. I think that would be the biggest benefit of that, is to get the information out, to share all the information, let that be the committee. Here, let's look at all our plans. We looked at that, let that committee, here's what's going on. Is it your recommendation to go to bid? Okay, great, and then pass that up the chain. But I think the biggest thing is going to be the communication and getting that out to all employees in all departments.
Well, Mr. Bates, I think that's gotten out to everybody.
Yes,
and
sir.
that's kind of run wildfire through the community. And now we're trying to put the horse back in the barn. I read your notes and I saw that we had these rates for a while. And we kind of just was trying to work on them a little bit better. We should have been ahead of that story, in my opinion, and we could have done a much better job. And the workshop that I mentioned, my concern was a lot of the constitutional officers said, we just got these rates, and some of them by mistake. I mean, I guess it went to the Sheriff's Department for employees, and other ones didn't even get it. Other constitutional officers were saying, what are you talking about, rate increase? Yes, they heard something was coming, but we never gave them a definitive price of what that was going to be. I got my rates the Monday night at 7 o'clock before the Tuesday meeting. I mean, that's when I got my rates. So there's no time to prepare for that. And my concern was that we have open enrollment coming in the month of August, which is next week. We're going to see open enrollment starting for an October renewal. These people, not just the Sheriff's Department, but all public works, has to make a life-changing decision with 30 days notice. And they're scratching their head like all of us going, what do we do? What's the best thing we can do? Do we bail? Do we stay? My wife needs it. We've heard about the situation with one wife. This is life-changing. And that's why I recommended buying some time here. I know that you can't do that, but I think we could do something in that.
Yeah, I mean, again, your contract is good until September 30th.
I want to close with a couple more questions. Are we still in the pro-share agreement with Florida Blue?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are we bound by a contract to stay there until?
No, sir. What the pro-share, and again, I mean, and insurance claims, Mr. Harvey knows this, but if you go in and see a doctor today, you're going to incur claims. It's not going to be billed and paid till typically 90 days.
Sure.
90 days. So the pro-share agreement, and it's a 2-year agreement where Florida Blue, in this case, and Putnam County enter into the agreement. And we say that we have administration fees. We're going to fix those for 2 years. We have a pooling charge, which pooling very simply, many of you heard, what if we have $1 million claim? We have a premature baby, end-stage renal disease. We have $1 million claim. How's that going to affect us? Inside of your plan, you have a pooling point, little less, but we'll just say $200,000. So what that means is that once a claim hits $200,000 and above, it's not counted on your renewal experience. So if you have $1 million claim, you're not going to get hit for the whole million. You're going to get hit for the first 200,000 in this example.
Mr. Bates,
There's a charge for that. That's fixed.
we pay a charge for that insurance.
Yes, sir, it's
correct?
reinsurance. You're
Yeah.
paying that in.
Right,
Then
okay.
you've got your claims expense. So at the end of 2 years, what the county paid in premium and what the costs were in the pooling, the administration and the claims, it takes 90 days. That's why there's that delay, because it's got to take 90 days to run out and be solid. It's split 50-50 with Florida Blue. And I think they had said, I mean, the contract said, yes, you have to be a member with us to receive that money. So the county, like this year, with the way things are, there's not a surplus in there. I mean, there's not additional money based on these claim numbers, so you can break that at any time.
Right.
But
we could break it in a 12-month contract. Wouldn't hurt us a bit.
No, sir.
If we saw something else we wanted to do.
Yeah.
If we went down a different
But
road.
last year, when there was $479 in there,
Right.
it didn't. And it takes, as you know, 90 days for that contract to fully mature and run out. So that's why there's the lag in I think that was, missed. But you can break that at any time. I think the attorney might say, 45 or 60-day written notice to the party, and it's null and void.
Thank you, Mr. Bates. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the
welcome.
opportunity.
Anyone else? You, sir.
I have one question.
You have to come to the podium, if you would, please. And the reason we do that, we're being recorded, and we have
Right, I
to get it all on
understand.
tape.
Mark Bradford, 130 Ore Griffin Drive. My question was, I was hearing all these numbers and everything else like that, but I also heard that it was Aetna, Blue, Florida Blue, and what else?
United?
And United. Now, United is pulling out at the end of the year, so we're stuck with Aetna
No, sir.
and Florida Blue?
United is leaving the individual marketplace in the state of Florida.
Right.
They're still in the group space. I'm just talking about what's going on in the total. They're still in the group space, but they are not in the individual marketplace
Right.
for next
So
year.
Florida Blue is going to be the only one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's.
In Putnam. Now, in
Okay.
some other counties, there's additional, but as it looks right now, and again, we'll know for sure in August, but it looks like just Florida Blue.
Yeah, that's what my question was, that now we're just stuck with the, okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Robert Bly, 116 Sand Lake Drive, Pomona Park, Florida. You mentioned something about the, was it the ProShare?
Yes, sir.
Now, earlier you had said we were in one-year contracts, but the ProShare is a two-year contract.
Yes, sir.
And you also said, when asked, that you must be a member to get that money if there's money in it.
Yes, sir.
Since this year we operated at deficit, there's no money in there for us to get back, right?
I'll know for sure 90 days after 9/31, but my projection is no, sir, there's not going to be any surplus.
All right, but we wouldn't be able to access that unless we renewed with you.
Oh, you get that statement.
We'll get a statement, but we couldn't get the money unless we were a member.
You get an analysis either way.
We can get an analysis, we can get a statement, but we can't get the money unless
You have
we're
to
a
be a
member.
and let me, that is Florida Blues contract,
Okay.
not mine.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes, sir. I made mention earlier that I got some insurance quotes individually. How would that affect the group if the people decided to go get their individual accounts?
It would, but you would come off the group, so all your claims experience would come off the group, but it would be no adverse or inverse effect to the group.
So as the group insurance, there would be no effect if, say, the whole sheriff's department pulled
Oh,
out
if the
of
entire sheriff's department, yes, there would be impacts. And again, as I said before, it could be positive or negative for each one, but I don't know the full impacts. But yes, if an entire department, there would be a re-rating of the entire group. Each one would get separate rates. Yes, sir. If one or two members leave and come, that's not going to have an impact. But at a 200-man, 250-man department, huge impacts within the administration and everything else. Yes, sir.
Yes,
And
go
if
ahead.
and if they're all healthy, that takes in another account of it. So you take all the healthy people out, leave the sick people here. You got
It could
more
be
claims, less
Yeah,
premium.
it could be big.
So it's the dog chase. I mean, this is a bad situation.
Steve, and some counties are even just giving the subsidy and putting you out on your own. They give every employee, a neighbor of ours in this county over, I won't mention them, $550 per employee, and you go on the open market individually, like you're saying.
Gimme.
Be careful what you wish for. I mean, really, there's pros and cons to that, like anything. Benji will tell you.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
what is it that we're paying per employee on their behalf now?
Ann has that, hold on, and I wanted to say something too.
I just have the proposed list before me, but the core rate is the same. Single coverage is $481.30 per month that the county pays. Employee and spouse, $721.95 per month that the county pays. Employee and child is $631.71 that the county contributes. And the family plan is $1,012.04, and that's the core rates. I don't have last year's rates before me, but I could get them, and they're posted
That's
online.
fine,
I'll
there
just-
are benefits that you get that you just don't see, or that you know that we are paying, and I just wanted to know what they were.
Mrs. Propel.
Also, we've mentioned several times the possibility of a healthy group of 200 people possibly leaving. They would leave with their spouses and children and potentially their block of retirees who may not be as healthy as the employees themselves.
Let's see. There was somebody else.
Mr. Deloach, I think.
Yes, Mr. Deloach, come on.
I think you would all agree that we've done a more than adequate job of helping you see things from our perspective. So I won't beat you over the head with that anymore. But what I do offer is what I see as a viable solution to help mitigate these insurance premium increases. Commissioner Harris said earlier that we're currently funding an employee-only premium at 100% and the core plan at 75%. Previously, last year, that core plan was funded at 86% as opposed to the 75% that's proposed in October. What I propose to you is that you maintain the status quo for employee-only coverage and allow them to continue to make that $22 a month contribution. Take that money, put it into a pool, and divide it equitably among employees with employee and child coverage and employee and family coverage only to help mitigate this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Allen?
Yes, floor is yours.
Currently, do you have the numbers of how many employees in the whole group are employee-only versus employee family versus employee children?
The current numbers are about 234 in the core plan and about 240 in the buy-up plan. It changes depending on if employees experience a lifestyle change, so the numbers can change. That means if they get married or have a child, but it's around 500 people.
So you're saying about half are employee-only?
That's right, and our goal has been to provide 100% employee coverage because of healthcare reform, and that's a goal of the counties, but it's also driven because we do not want to be fined for not providing that coverage, which is something Mr. Bates could probably expound on a little more about what could happen to the county if we fail to do that in a timely manner.
The provisions, you have to provide a healthcare plan, which it does, meets minimum value, and it has to be, the affordability safe harbor is 9.5% of that employee's gross wages. So if that individual plan exceeds 9.5% of their wages, then you could be found out of compliance and subject to a fine. But as long as that plan meets minimum value, it does, and it's 9.5% or less, then you're out of compliance. So that, it doesn't have to be 100%. That was just something that staff thought would be a tremendous benefit to the individuals, and offered those benefits there. Again, it's, no one else offers those 100%, but that was a decision, and it's, just doing everything we can for those employees, or the staff's, the county's employees.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Harvey?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Ms. Poppel, in the last meeting, you mentioned you have whittled the pencil down and bled over it. I see your Band-Aid on there. Mr. Deloach makes a pretty good point here, and I'm just going to ask you and Ms. Allen, when you looked at the participation requirements that the county does currently versus what we can do you have any numbers of what the future liability was going to be if we stayed at the same participation, if we dropped down a little bit? Did you have any scratch notes on that if we stay here, it's a $200,000 hit on our fund. If we come down a little bit better, it's $100,000. I mean, do you have any of those numbers that we can look at? No?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, come forward, please, sir.
George Traber, 130 Ori Griffin Boulevard. I've got a little bit of a question. Maybe you can answer it for me. Typically in government, we piggyback on other agencies' contracts for things like that. Why can't we piggyback maybe on the state's healthcare insurance or something like that to bring the cost down lower?
I'm not an expert with the state. I mean, there are, I think that, I know from experience, there was a pool that was created with NEFAC, the Education Consortium. They all pulled together to come about, we're going to have one program for all these school districts for their health insurance. I don't know, maybe 5-10 years ago. Now it's dissolved. There's good with that. It increases buying power. We can lower administration. Ultimately, what then happens is individual school districts say, we're doing things, wow, we can get cheaper coverage out here. So they all start to peel off, and then we see rates pile. Worked with Bradford County School Board. They were in that NEFAC situation. I want to say that for the next year, they said, well, it's going to cost you $3 million to stay in our pool. We worked with them, we pulled them out on their own, and it took 8 years. I mean, they were, I think, 2.1 million. They saved almost $1 million. I'm just going on memory by pulling out of that pool. So pools do work, but again, that's the state pool for the state employees. There is the FMIT, the county, for the local governments to pull together and looked at that.
FMIT is Florida Municipals Insurance Corporation.
Sorry.
It's
Yes,
mainly
trust.
your Florida cities, or the
Mhm.
League of Cities it's referred to sometimes. And that's a pool we have looked at. Yes, Commissioner
Mr.
Clark.
Chairman, also existing pools, if a person want to be added to an existing pool, they're looking at your experience before you're added. And if your experience has not been a pleasant one, then you're not going to be added just because you want to be in it.
Yes, sir. And unfortunately, I mean, they look at who you are, who's coming in, and I mean, if we were to say, okay, I want you to go talk to a neighboring county and let us come in, they might, and again, how's the administration of that? Who's making those decisions? Where if we've got different entities coming together, different constituents, it can get very clouded. But ultimately, it's that claims experience, that county. And they might say, that's great, but we might not want this member or that member. I'm not sure, but it could affect that.
You also looked at, there was a couple of bids that were happening in the interim period that you all evaluated.
Oh, yeah, we look, 12 months out of a year, we're seeing what movement's going on, what the care, talking to them, hey, what are we seeing, what's forecasting, looking to see who's aggressive, where are we with, market data, and sharing that with staff year round. And I think every year I send Ann, hey Ann, this even if it's the middle of Christmas, it's like, hey, this county, they just did this, here's what they're doing. We always share that data back and forth, so we're well informed of what's going on in the marketplace. Yes, sir.
Okay, Commissioners? Go ahead, Commissioner.
I just had one comment that I felt I wanted to make. You have had some excellent comments and things that you've brought up, especially Mr. Deloach and Mr. Trevor. But it's hard to just give an answer off the cuff, but we need to put a pen to paper and see how that works out. And I believe our plan, we're going to vote on it, is to put together an insurance committee, and all of those ideas can be vetted. And we can look into and really take some time and look at them well and say, okay, this would work because it'll do this, or this wouldn't. So we want to do it better. And that's what we need, is everyone putting their heads together. It's just like, I think Mr. Flagg said earlier.
Well, that was my next comment.
all
Where do
working
you
together.
commissioners want to go with this from
Yeah.
this point? We've
All right.
heard some great testimony this
Yeah.
morning. I think we hear the charge, and what would you like to do with it?
For one, I agree with Captain Deloach about mitigating that, spreading that burden out. People that have been paying $22 a month for
Well,
coverage.
this is for the committee, but
Well, I just want to reiterate that I think he's got a good
I
plan
agree,
there,
I
and
agree.
it lessens that burden. I don't know how much it'll lessen it, but I think it does
All right,
do
let me
something.
rephrase my request. In lieu of my agenda here in front of me, I've got to move this meeting. So where would you like to take this insurance debate?
I'd like to go ahead and bring up the insurance committee right now and vote on it and start appointing people. I'm ready to appoint my first one today.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect to all concerned, the committee is not going to be mobilized in time to deal with this crisis.
Couldn't agree more.
This is the committee.
It is the committee.
Let's workshop as soon as we can get it scheduled. Let's get staff to drill down on what our options are, the impact of these options. And this is the committee for now. Let's get the committee to start fresh.
What do you feel about constitutionals, particularly Sheriff?
Absolutely. Get the constitutional leaders in, with the commissioners in. Let's drill down on this and come up with a plan that will deal with the immediate crisis, and then let the committee start fresh.
Mr. Harvey, do you agree with that?
I'm fine with that.
Say that again?
Yes,
You're
sir.
fine?
Yes, sir. I'm good with that.
Okay. Commissioner Harris?
Yeah, I think that's excellent. We need to get started on what we can, and then we're going to have a committee besides that for the future to see what else we can.
But for
come
right
up
now,
Let's have a clean slate for the committee. Let's
That's
get the
right.
constitutionals in, and us, our administration, and let's drill down on what we can do to
let's
fix
solve the
this.
crisis. Mr. Leary, you heard what we'd like to do. Can you put some dates together for us? Not right now, but, and get them to us to
Said sure.
convene.
I'd like to make that a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Second.
Public comment's over right now. We got a motion on the floor, and it's over right now, Mary Kay. We need to move this agenda forward. Thank you.
Question?
Question's been called. You have a motion?
In a second, yeah.
Okay.
In second.
We've got a second over here. Further discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Okay, now if you would like, where'd you go? You want to come up? Okay, all right. You have to come to the podium, Mrs. Engelking. And after that, we're taking no more public comment. I got to move this agenda.
My question is, I'm a layperson.
Name and record for the
Oh,
address.
sorry. Mary Kay Engelking, 107 Dinkle Lane, Palaca, Florida. As I was saying, I'm a layperson when it comes to the insurance situation, but it sounds like the way we do it, we hire an insurance broker to go out and find the best insurance coverage at a low cost for our county. We go to, we've gone to Bates Hewitt as our insurance broker. Okay, Bates Hewitt is hired by Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they're the ones who pay Bates Hewitt for bringing the business to them. Why haven't we, first of all, the insurance broker then is with Blue Cross Blue Shield. We hire him or them to be our coverage. What is the commission that Bates Hewitt would be making from Blue Cross Blue Shield? I went to your Human Resources Department. I asked for copies of contracts, emails, any kind of communication that Ben Bates Hewitt would have with the Blue Cross Blue Shield and with the county. What is your relationship in conversation with the county? I was told there is no communication with Ben Bates and the county Human Resource Department. Now, we have been talking about they do have a voice with our Human Resources Department. I was just not allowed the documents. But I would just like to know, because it's like they are an insurance broker, they bring in Blue Cross Blue Shield, which I think they could have gone to other insurance coverages if they put out for bid. What is their commission that they will receive from Blue Cross Blue Shield if we stay with them?
We can't answer that, Ms. Engelking, but if you get with Mr. Bates, he wants to share
No,
that.
I'd like to know today.
That's a private.
I'll get it. I don't have that on there.
Because
I'll have to go to
if
our
it's based on the dollars,
Well, that's between them and Blue
no,
Options.
it's between
It's-
you
No, it's
because
not.
you're accepting Blue Cross Blue Shield at their recommendation instead of going to another company, see what they have. I have private company insurance, but you can get other bids. But instead, you're staying with them. Their main concern is Blue Cross Blue Shield to sell it to you because that's how they make their commission.
That's
Thank you.
misinformation, Mr. Chairman.
It is, thank you for your time. All right, that's it. Mr. Overturf, on item, could. Can I ask a question? Come on. Why don't you make your announcement concerning the agenda too while you're at it?
Oh, okay.
All right.
Just real quick, I just want to, as a constitutional officer, get a clarification that what you all exactly did so that the rest of the constitutional officers will know what was expected. Are we putting this on hold and the commissioners and the staff and us as constitutional officers are going to start and see if we can't come up with a different proposal? Or did we misunderstand? I just want clarification. I think everybody wants to know exactly
We're going to come
what
to
did
the
we vote
table
on.
in a meeting yet to be set quickly, and we're going to put everything on the table and see if we can work through this crisis together.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure so that the public knows what, because I wasn't sure exactly what we agreed to meet on, so.
You had an announcement in lieu of
Right,
time,
right,
and I
yeah.
need that announcement if you
Yes,
get
sir,
to it.
right. But this is way more important than what I was going to present to you all, so I'm asking just to.
Be tabled to the first meeting in August.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Overturf.
Thank you.
That's helpful this morning.
Thank you.
Okay, with that being said, Commissioners, we're going to take another 5-minute break, and then we're going to roll through the rest of this agenda.
Benji. Hey, Benji. Benji.
Commission. I've got a request to change our agenda, and staff, I need you to listen to this. We wanted to take pending business, Mr. Leary, we just talked about, and also our Port Authority business, and deal with them right now, and then break, push our workshop back, reconvene here at 2 o'clock, finish the agenda, and go into workshop. Is that suitable?
Sure.
Well, I mean, anything suits me, but I think before you do any of that, sir, I think there's a subject you need to take up.
That's there. I want to take that subject up, and the Port Authority, and then break,
Yeah.
and then come back. Public Works, is that workable? Go ahead, Press.
We have our 2 o'clock transportation committee meeting today.
What we'll do is we will come back at 2 o'clock as planned, but we're going to finish the agenda, which won't take long, and then we'll go into our transportation meeting. Sound good? We're good. Okay, everybody else good in the room? All right, that's good. Okay, I am going to call on Mr. Leary to discuss some possibilities associated with our discussion this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Just relating back to your most recent discussion that you were going to put anything and everything on the table in consideration of dealing with the subject matter that dominated the conversation this morning. My question to you is, does that include the possibility of an upward adjustment in the millage rate? And the reason I ask that question is because this is the last day that you can deal with the question of adjusting that millage upward, because we have to provide the appropriate forms to the Department of Revenue and to the property appraiser so that he can prepare the trim notices, which have to go out in August, giving notice, of course, to taxpayers of the potential adjustment in the millage rate. Now, I know that you cannot determine what millage rate you might adjust to. If you're willing to adjust upward from what you decided on July the 12th, but you could just arbitrarily determine a millage number, and if you chose to adjust the millage upward to a lesser number, or not to adjust it beyond the number you decided upon on July the 12th, in September, you can adjust it back down. So.
Okay, and what that does is gives us flexibility in our negotiations of the meeting we just called for with the constitutionals, the county commission, and I said we'll put everything on the table. That is one of those items that will go on the table, might not be used, as Mr. Leary just explained, and could be left alone, adjusted down, or whatever we want. But the window for any adjustment is today. So tell me your feelings on it, commissioners, or any questions you might have for Mr. Leary or our budget officer, Mrs. Popel. Commissioner Harris.
Mr. Leary, our current millage rate is at what,
9.014, I believe, is what you set on.
It is.
Okay, and
on
the maximum
the 12th.
we can go to is 10.
Well, you can go to 10, but I don't think you want to go to 10. If you were going to just arbitrarily pluck a number from the air, that would serve as a ceiling, if you will, between that you couldn't go beyond here in September. I would suggest 9.4. That would give you.
How much money would that give?
Well, Ms. Popel and I were actually playing with some numbers a few days back when we were sort of looking at, well, what would it take for the county to adjust the millage rate to provide for a 3% adjustment in a COLA, and these are in extremely round numbers. Okay, that would take about $940,000 for the county to do that countywide, and would necessitate a millage rate of something in the neighborhood of like 9.37. So that's
So we'd have
I don't know what I have no idea what the impact of doing anything for an insurance adjustment would be, and there's any kind of myriad combinations of things that you could develop, I suppose, but I doubt that you would develop anything that would exceed $1 million, I wouldn't think. That's why I'm just suggesting arbitrarily a 9.4 millage rate.
And that's really the only way that we have of getting money to help this situation is to raise
Well,
taxes.
you don't have any money in the insurance reserve. You heard your independent CPA stand at that podium about 2.5 hours ago and say, you have 1 month operating reserve, and you really ought to have 2. So that kind of takes out of consideration, it seems to me, any further appropriation of fund balance beyond that what's already been suggested to balance the budget going to the next fiscal year. So, that kind of limits your
Well, I guess I'm trying to say is, we're pretty close to our ceiling right now.
well, you're approaching 10,
Don't have a lot
yeah.
of room to go. If we had something really huge that we had to do, or something horrible, that happened, that we needed to raise money for. Not that this isn't horrible that is happening that we would like to straighten out, but I just wanted to look at the big picture and see what kind of numbers we're looking at.
It's a tool. When we go to the table to negotiate, it's just another tool. Hopefully, we won't even have to use it.
So we can go to the table, and if we go just like we are right now, we don't have anything to negotiate with.
We don't, in the
We can
general
go.
fund. That's what
Unless
Mr.
someone
Larry
has a
said.
really good idea, maybe what Mr. Deloach, suggested, we could see what that number would be. But other than that, there's no way, there's no wiggle room and no money that we have that we can do this unless we raise the taxes.
At the break, a constitutional officer came up to me and offered part of his budget back. So there are things happening. They felt the passion. They hear the cry.
Yeah.
We hear it for certain, and there will be a lot of discussion.
So we could add that in. All right, but we don't have anything to deal with unless we did say that we could raise the millage up to X amount. And then we don't have to use it.
As far as I know, there are none. Commissioner Harris, our budget officer, has got Band-Aids on her fingers. That's pretty compelling in itself, but it really is. But anyhow, I think it's an answer also, bottom line.
Well, I'm adamantly opposed to raising taxes because we know how tough things are. But at the end of the day, when we look at, quote, the crisis there, the only tool we can bring to the table is revenue to fix this situation.
Exactly
And,
right.
Of course, in order to bring revenue there, we have to have what I would call a safety net, because when the constitutional officers come to the table, if they find a way to from a line item to do some things, it's still the money that's been appropriated there.
I agree,
so
and
we can bring-
the only thing left beyond that point, you're so right, would be changes in the insurance plan that has been developed for this coming year. As suggested earlier, single people changing theirs to where maybe the old core plan, and then taking that up plan and making it more palatable for those folks that need it.
We've had enough.
I mean, there's some of that, but that's not a silver bullet either.
Well, we've had enough discussion and deliberations on how everybody is feeling. The thing that I didn't want anybody to leave here feeling was that no one up here cared, because we all do care.
And we never really got to say that.
And that's unanimous there. Well, and I think deep down in the hearts of everybody concerned know that we are concerned, but I think that the shifting of saying you 5 people can do something, and it's going to take more than the 5 people. It's going to take the taxpayers of Putnam County to do something.
That's exactly right.
There. And so at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to me whether it's an election year or non-election year. We've got a situation that's got to be dealt with, and I think we've got what I call forward movement with the 5 county commissioners and our constitutional officers coming together with our administration. But we don't have anything to bring to the table without making some adjustment, a recommended adjustment, just to say this is what we call our last resort. But if we don't put that last resort option on the table based on deadline, then we don't go to the table with that.
Yeah.
Mr.
You're not
Chairman?
committed, is what we're saying. Yes.
2 things I'd like to see happen before, when we finally do get together and meet, is hard numbers, that $22 that our employees that have been paying part of their own way, what does that help as a cost savings to the others when you put all the numbers together? And the other one is somewhere where it came out of giving the employees some money and let them pay their own. I just want to, what kind of number?
Insurance subsidy.
Yeah, insurance subsidy. Give it to them, let them, how much would we give? Need to have those numbers
These are
put
all good
together.
questions for
And we have to be mindful of the fact that.
Let me
there
answer
is
a
no
$22
one-size-fits-all.
question for you. I just did some quick math. Granted, my math might be wrong, but we have 281 employees that we are proposing to pay $481 for. And that's supposedly $22.
And change.
Okay. Roughly $22. So $22 times 281 employees is $6,182 a month times 12. If my math is right, that's $74,182 a year. Now, I don't, $74,182. That's all that amounts to.
I understand it's not a large amount, Mr.
Not
Weir.
much money.
I understand that, but if you put that, and as he said, a constitutional officer is willing to give back some of his money, you start putting those numbers together, it might be a larger number than we realize. I'm just a thought. Don't take it, it's not bankable.
That constitutional officer has a very small budget on one.
I know, he's already talked to me.
Well, I also think that, as I said a moment ago, one size does not fit all, and the employee should not be, I would say, if you give, don't take away. The primary responsibility of the county is to make sure that employee has the best benefit. The family plan, most companies, again, do cover the 75 and the 80. The percentage that's being covered is not the issue. It's the overall cost that's causing this situation. The plan, as far as HR benefits are concerned, there are companies that don't come close to that. When it comes down to that, I think that the crisis is now. We have a plan to deal. I say a plan. We have some progressive steps that we're putting in motion today to deal with it. Mr. Chairman, I know that it is our deadline, but I'm suggesting that we over this break meditate on it and then come up with a number. If this board is in consensus that that's all we can bring to the table, and then have a rate that we can vote on. Military.
Yeah, it's a big issue.
I guess one more thing just to throw in there. We really haven't given the education to the employees yet. The Sheriff's Department, they got numbers, but they haven't really had any real education as to the difference in the plans. It's hard to grasp all that. It's hard to grasp it when you can sit and look at the numbers and talk back and forth, but to have it on a screen for just a minute, it just kind of goes over your head. So we really haven't had that done and one-on-one to sit down to see if there really is as big of a problem as we think. I think it just got blown out of proportion and people are just panic-stricken. And I don't know how to work that in, but I think we should be aware that it may not be as bad as we think it is once they have a chance to have the education.
I don't think it is, and I think the focus and the perception is, I don't know how, when we have a core plan as good as we have this year, how can the buy-up plan dominate our conversation?
Yeah.
The core plan is really, really good, but it
And it
didn't
already-
rise to the top. I don't know why.
And it divides everybody in half.
Oh, yeah.
And then look at all the different ones that don't even get their insurance through the county. I mean, that was just a smattering that, we mentioned, so. And some of them, they were just speaking up for their buddies because they said, I don't even have it, but I'm worried about my friends. And they have the worst case scenario on their mind. So,
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
As I said earlier, I don't believe that the information has been put out there well enough of the old core plan versus the new core plan. I think they've got it in their head that the old core plan, that didn't cover anything, I don't want that. That's the reason they went into the upgraded plan.
That's why the new core plan didn't rise.
If it had a new name, the Super Core or the Core Plus or something, I think it would gain all kind of respect.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And it would get a different viewpoint.
It's really stellar, and they really stepped up. I think the Bates organization did a good job of creating it.
I don't think, we've seen a draft of old core versus new core to compare. And they've got it in their head that the old core didn't do anything, and therefore they wanted to buy up, and now all they can see is buy up and sky up.
I agree.
That's my overview.
All right, so we're going to consider that on your break. Let's go to, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Hart, you had something?
No, you had something?
You know, I just have one concern, and I don't mind having that conversation, but doing it today without public notice is kind of difficult. We've already had the public notice, we've already set the rate, and based on today, we might go back to the table with another rate. I wish our audience was here to hear that, that's all.
Yeah, but we still have the normal public hearings there, so nothing is etched in stone based on, again, every year we go through this, and this year we have a different crisis that we're dealing with. And so if our decision today was raising taxes, of course, we couldn't do it anyway because we would have to have the public hearing. So since our decision is not raising taxes, we're basically getting a tool to put in the chest so that we will have the ability to use the tool if we need to. And so I think, Mr.
Well, that
Hart,
was,
based on that,
Mr. Chairman, that was why my question was asked earlier. Do we have any knowledge of what these participation guidelines would be with any scribbling on a piece of paper? And the answer is no. What we heard a minute ago was 3% COLA would be around $900,000. But that's really not the question on the table. The question on the table is if everybody gets better participation, it's 300,000 or it's 500. We don't know that. And I think that's where I get a little heartburn at. So.
Okay, we'll keep all that in mind. As Commissioner Flagg said, meditate it over your lunch. Let's move to item 14 on the agenda now and get to that lunch. All right. Item 14. We're going to recess, the county commission meeting, and we're going to go into the Port Authority, convene to the Port Authority. Give us just a minute to get our pages up.
Mr. Chairman, while we're getting them, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes of our last meeting.
So moved. Second.
Yes.
Already recessed the port,
You did.
reconvened.
You recessed.
Oh, I'm sorry, you meant for the port. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I second.
Motion on the floor to approve the minutes of our
Right,
last meeting.
there's a motion on the floor to approve the minutes of the
The last two
Port
meetings.
Authority.
Putnam County Port Authority, and it is 2 meetings, August.
September 8th and March 21st.
Okay, very well. Did you get that, Tony? Yeah, all right.
the second.
Who's got the second?
Second includes both
Mr.
dates, yes, sir.
Harvey. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, before you move on to item B, the minutes of March the 22nd contain your approval of a purchase agreement between the county, between the Port Authority and Premier Palaca for the purchase of approximately, I think it was 4.5 acres of land at the business park.
Correct.
And I think that I had advised you that we had received a communication in May from the representative of Premier Palaca that they were acting to terminate that land purchase agreement formally, and the purchase agreement did provide for them to do that, but I'm advising you at this meeting of our having received that so that we can enter that into the minutes just formally, even though I had advised you of that.
Yes. Thank you. Any questions on that? Okay, comments? All right. You want to do the summary highlights?
I'll be happy to,
On our-
unless Mr. Bergen wants to do that. since
Yes,
he
I'm sorry.
Played a
Brian.
significant role in bringing this to the point where it's at. Brian, do you want to do it?
For the record, Mr. Bergen represents Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, I'm Brian Bergen, the Vice President of Economic Development for the Chamber of Commerce. As Mr. Leary had suggested, the 4.5 acre this is the same individual doing the purchase, has taken that off the table largely due to the cost of being able to develop that piece of land. As you all were aware, we had a primary buyer and another prospect for purchasing the spec building early on. They are not leaving the county, but they have found a spot that is more suitable than the spec building. And this actually will work out better in the long run. Premier Palatka is the organization wishing to purchase the spec building and the 5 acres that is behind that as one unit. I believe the price that they have offered is $1.2 million for the property and the building. And hopefully, or not hopefully, this project will end up creating, at the beginning, 50 new jobs in Putnam County.
Very good job, Brian.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I couldn't control my enthusiasm.
We'll all clap when the check cashes.
Chairman, can I ask a question?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
May I? So we purchased that spec building, or we built it with money from the Better Place Plan.
We did use Better Place Plan money to put that spec building in place, yes.
So then, do we need to put the money for that back into the Better Place Plan?
Yes, when the proceeds are received and the sale is consummated, the proceeds would be deposited back into the Better Place Plan funds.
And are we making a profit?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Commissioner Flagg.
Mr. Chairman, I know there's other discussion, but I'd like to go ahead and put a motion in place to accept the purchase agreement and authorize the execution on behalf of the county.
Second.
Motion is second. Further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I did want to say something. Even though we might be losing money on it, we are getting rid of this building. It's putting back on the tax roll. We're getting employees here. It's a win-win for the county. It's our economic development plan or motivator, if you will, and I'm fine with that. So
It's 50 more jobs, he said.
I vote aye.
Well, I'm not sure we're losing money, are we?
Well,
Actual cost.
after what, almost 13 years, I think, that spec building's been in place and there's been considerable effort to market it. I think the offer that's on the table is one that we need to take, and obviously you all agree with that, and we need to move forward.
I just wanted to clarify, could we use it for insurance?
No, I knew where you were going with that
But
conversation.
anyway, that being clarified, I'm for it anyway. I didn't want you to think I wasn't.
Was it, go, he called the question, go ahead.
Yeah, you did call the question. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I'm not even gonna say the rest of it. It's unanimous.
I had one quick question for Mr. Leary. Was that building built with 100% BPP money?
Yes.
Okay.
It was. Mr. Bergeron, good job, and I know you have other things that you'll be announcing later, and we appreciate all your effort.
The reason I wanted
The
to be
chamber.
sure that everybody knew who you were and where you were from for the record was tired of hearing the Chamber of Commerce get beat up on. What do? They don't submit, they don't tell, they don't do anything. Well, you just submitted us $1.2 million.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. What do we got there?
Item C.
Yep, item C, assumption lease warehouse barge. That's Mr. Manning, isn't it? Item C? Go ahead, sir.
As you are all aware, FCTC is no longer operational. First Coast Technical College and actually technically First Coast Technical Institute, doing business as First Coast Technical College. They were renting Warehouse 2, believe it is out at the port. I think they hold welding classes out there. I've had discussions with St. Johns County School District, and they have approved or agreed between FCTI and themselves for the school to assume that lease out at that property effective July 1st. So this matter before you today is to consent to that assignment and assumption from FCTI to the St. John's School Board, and it would be, again, retroactive to July 1, 2016, through the end of the term, and whatever other renewals are maybe existing on there.
Mr. Manning, all terms and amounts the same?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioners. Any questions of Mr. Manning? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. Got a motion?
Second.
Second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you.
I have the motion.
Carl. Yeah.
Oh, Flaggo.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I think we can go through this consent and stuff pretty quick if you want to continue.
Mr.
I don't have anything to pull.
I don't either.
I don't have anything to pull.
I don't have
Wait,
anything to pull.
wait. I have to not recess, but
Oh, yes.
Start back.
adjourn the Port Authority.
Thank you.
Which I did. We're going to reconvene the county commission meeting. All right, now, go ahead with your business.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we pass the consent agenda, items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H.
A motion on the floor?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Okay.
Planning and development.
Overturf is postponed to next month, right?
He's rescheduled.
Next week, 2 weeks.
Can we do that when we come back to code enforcement?
We can. When we come back, we will
Mr.
adjourn.
Hammond says he can get it done in 10 minutes?
We
All
could
of them.
take these abatements together. There's nobody referenced.
So we can do them all in 10 minutes?
Yeah. There's no reason we can't do that. They're all the same. They're all for abatement.
The
Unless you
pictures
have
speak for
questions.
themselves.
Are there any people?
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's nobody here.
The basic idea is this. Again, this is our continued abatement program. You haven't seen a lot of abatements lately. We're just getting close to the end of fiscal year and trying to make sure we've got, at the very least, these things approved and on a list. And then we get to them as we get money and as priority insists. You have before you 8 of them. If you have reviewed the pictures, which I'm sure you all have seen them, a picture is worth many thousands of words. These are all units that are virtually unsalvageable. Many of them are collapsing. They are attractive nuisance. They are, they need to be, the only thing left is to remove them. And again, we put them on the list and remove them as we can.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hammonds. Commissioners, any questions or comments to Mr. Hammonds on code enforcement A through H?
No, sir. Thank you for cleaning up Interlock.
Yeah, exactly.
Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Just for sake of protocol, will you open up the public hearing?
I will. Public hearing on code enforcement and the abatement cases 2014-00409 through 2014-00346. Is there anybody from the public wishing to comment on these cases? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment of the hearing and reconvene for commissioners' deliberation.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval, code enforcement request for abatement, cases A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H.
Second. Motion and second, further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you, commissioners. We will move to appointments.
I have none.
None?
None.
None.
Okay, county administrator?
Y'all have a value adjustment board.
Yeah, I know, we need to do that.
We're gonna get it. I know it's getting close. I got somebody I'm talking to.
I need it yesterday. I should have had it in May.
Okay, he'll bring it back at 2 o'clock.
I will.
Okay, thank you.
How about that? Mr. Leary?
Nothing,
Anything? County attorney?
Just to put on the record that we are not requesting the executive session for today. That is canceled.
Okay, it was, okay. Clerk of Court, Mr. Tim Smith, you've been awfully patient and quiet today.
No item, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That helps.
I look forward to
working with your committee to find the best solutions for our employees.
We look forward to your input. Thank you.
Are suffering through life insurance.
Yes, sir. Okay. Okay, let me make sure we've got it all here.
Yeah, we still have to deal with the millage issue when we come back, so we still need to recess and not adjourn.
Yep, you're right. Okay. I want everybody to really think about the millage over lunch, and then we will do that, and we'll go into our transportation. So we are recessing at this moment until we come back from the lunch break.
So we'll
come back,
together
we're coming
again
back
at 2.
2 o'clock to finish our board meeting, and then we'll go into workshop immediately.
Right. Let's stay. That's right. Okay, if you have something to say, Mary Kay, you can come up to the podium and say it, but public comment is held at a certain portion of the agenda.
Mary Kay Engel, King 107, Dingle Lane, Palaca, Florida. What I'm asking, I know you just covered it, economic development. If you take a minute here, economic development is given to economic development. We hire the chamber to handle our economic development. The Putnam County has a council that runs that economic development. Who are the people that are on that committee that make the decisions on what businesses come in, what businesses go out, or we don't accept? There's no names. Of 26 years, you've always appointed individuals from each district, someone to sit on that committee. And in this case, I was told that that information cannot be given. Who sits on that committee? Who makes these decisions?
I don't know of any committee you're talking about.
It's called the Putnam Council. I'll email it to you.
Well, email it to me because I'm not familiar with any
All right,
economic
let me just
development.
say, who is on the Economic Development Committee? You have the director of it, but who else serves on that committee to make decisions? I know Ben Bates is on it because he talked about it the other day.
You talking about the Development Authority?
No, because Ben isn't on that.
The economic, because Ben talked about it the other day on the committee because he was talking about Walmart Distribution Center, and he was telling you all the different steps.
Are you talking about the Chamber Executive Committee?
No, not the Chamber Executive Committee. It says
They
council.
have a subcommittee that deals with economic development, but that's the only one I know of.
Okay, I'm learning. Who is on that committee?
I don't have a current roster.
Do you know who's on the committee? I know Ben Bates, he's already said he was.
I don't know. I don't have a current
would be
roster.
from the
That's a
chamber.
question for the chamber.
Chamber doesn't have it, they won't tell you. Everything's, they told me, it's private. So I'm here with you. Who's on that committee? Who is,
Well, I can't answer your question. I'm
well, can you
sorry.
find an answer for me?
I'll see if I can do that. All right, we're out of here.
Somebody left their glasses. Thank you.
You what?
I need you to
recess. Okay, we're going to recess our county commission meeting at 12:47. We'll reconvene at 2 o'clock today. Thank you. Board of County Commission meeting, Tuesday, July 26th, the afternoon session. And we're going to open it up. We have one order of business left to discuss today. Mr. Leary, can I call on you to give just a quick summary of this window of opportunity or whatever you would like to phrase it?
Well, I mean, I think the discussion prior to lunch, Mr. Chairman, was whether or not you wanted to, in effect, reconsider the resolution, the part of the resolution that you adopted on July the 12th, which set the tentative millage rate for the general fund at 9.0914 mils. And if you wish to consider a higher millage rate than that for the future in order to maintain your options going forward relative to your examination of the insurance issue, you would need to do that at this meeting.
Okay, well, I'll open it up to board discussion. We certainly have somewhat of a challenge in front of us, meeting these insurance needs, and this could be a tool, and I know all 5 of us want to help the sheriff's office and as well as our own employees, so let's start a conversation with your feelings right here on the subject. Anybody can go first.
Okay. I'm not for raising the millage at all. I don't know exactly what the answer is, but I don't want to be labeled tax and spend. I'm really optimistic, and I guess I'm always seeing the glass half full, not half empty, that this insurance committee is going to be able to find or do something that maybe, is it going to be 100% relief? No, I don't think there's anything going to do that, but certainly could help somewhere, somehow. As much as I said before, the $22 plus any constitutional officer that had money to give back, all that stuff adds up and makes some compensation. Maybe not 100%, but it makes some. And I think that's worth looking into.
Anybody else?
What is the difference in the costs for the COLA versus the adverse insurance impact?
What was the first word?
The COLA.
Yeah,
the
cost of living
I
adjustment.
think the COLA was, a 3% COLA was roughly $940,000, but I don't know what the other number is. I have no idea.
I don't have that with me.
Well, I'm talking about based upon what is projected now that, quote, the county is not paying, proposed to not pay for the upcoming year. What is that approximate number? It's less than the 940, correct?
Oh, yeah. Are you talking about the amounts that if the county were to pay what it's paying?
If the county
percentage-wise,
if we had the money in reserves, which we know we don't, how much would we be dipping into reserves this year if the money was there, just to cover insurance?
to say, so that the employees weren't paying any more than they are the previous year?
Correct.
But we've asked that question twice, and we don't know.
I don't know. I would have to calculate it. I don't know.
Right.
Okay, maybe I need to ask the question in a different manner. Based upon what the employees, based on the employee mix that we have now, and the increases that each individual, and again, it was well stated by Ms. Allen, that 10 people can come in tomorrow and say, I'm married, got a family plan. 25 more can come in and say, I'm divorced or widowed and I need a single plan. I understand that variable in the equation, but I guess what I'm asking is, and I'm not asking for a hard number, I'm asking if we thought, we knew we had no reserves, therefore we didn't calculate the county bearing the expense. Whatever expense that is, quote, proposed, that is passed on to each individual employee, do we have an estimate of that number?
I may have something close to that in my office. I don't have it with me.
Okay.
And I don't have
No,
it here.
I'm not expecting, it would be unreasonable on my part to expect you to have that on the top of your head. I'm just
Okay.
trying to weigh, the crisis right now is not the employees saying it's another year we didn't get a COLA. That's not really what the number one crisis is. It is a crisis because people need to have raises, merit raises, cost of living adjustments, et cetera. But I'm trying to see, and I hate to even use this word, but what's the lesser of the two evils? The amount of money it would take to keep to counterbalance this year's insurance crisis, so that the quote committee that we appoint does not go in their first meeting with the crisis looming over their head. That we 5 county commissioners and the constitutional officers, with the blessing of administration, counterbalancing that. And I know I'm rambling a little bit, but that's, and again, I'm not expecting an answer off the top of your head, but for an example, if it was $500,000 that would counterbalance that insurance reserve to the best of our knowledge, then it would be easier to attain that number than it would be the 940 for the crisis.
Well, and I think one thing you'll have to consider when you're comparing those two is a COLA increase would be taxable, whereas health insurance premiums can be at pre-tax, so I think an adjustment would have to be made in those figures to, am I right?
Well, my COLA projections include the cost of FICA and Medicare and FRS.
Right.
Is that why it went from
I would
up?
have to go back to my office, and it may take me 5 or 10 minutes, but I could find some early calculations that I did. I just don't remember.
Right, and again,
To tell you which one's the lesser.
don't think that we're
remember.
being that unreasonable to expect for you too. I guess the point that I'm raising, Mr. Chairman, is that when the Board of County Commissioners meet with constitutional officers and our administrative staff, if we don't have a way to give some kind of relief, and the relief is coming only through having funds, and reserve is out of the question. There's not enough money in the various departments for them to kick it back and cover the situation. So it's not covered in any other way. So are we doing more to help the employees with the 3% COLA idea, or to deal with the insurance situation? Because if they get the 3%, that still may not offset what they're really having
It
a
may
struggle
not.
with. Right.
The insurance may cost more than the COLA would. It may, I just don't remember.
They're specifically asking for insurance premium levels to be what they were at 14-15.
That's right.
And that's going to take some magic.
Right.
And it is hard dollars. I'm not sure where we go. Let's go back to the potential millage, and it's a potential millage increase if we choose to do so. It's just another tool that if it came down to it, we could satisfy those requests with that this year. But there might be other things unforeseen that come from the different departments that might help too. As you said, you can't imagine anything from the general fund or anywhere else to do this, but we might get down to dues and to organizations and things that we're networking throughout the region with now. I mean, I don't know how much that dollar amount represents, but there's a whole bunch of stuff you could go in and cut, but is it cutting off your nose to spite your face? We have a lot invested in the region and our participation in economic development and other things to get us out of this situation and into positive cash flow. And to jeopardize that, I think, is foolish.
Okay. Let's just back into this a little bit. How many people do we have insured, that have insurance?
536.
578, isn't it?
That's what I thought.
For
578.
round numbers, call it 550, and another 100 say not insured.
And then half of those take the old plan, so it's really half of 578 that need the money to,
Approximately. There's some retirees in that mix.
so let's just say 240, just to round it off.
And then in each one of those, you've got some of them in the single plan and some of them in each of the tiers.
Right.
But you've got the brunt in either the single or the family.
So let's just say we've rounded it down to 240 that are being hurt the most, that think they need that other plan. And if we gave each of them $100, let's just do it in increments, that would be...
Times 12. 100 a month.
That's right, that's right.
288. $288,000.
288,000. So see, that's just if we did a little bit, and I don't think they're going to be happy with 100. They want the 600, or whatever. I think it's something we're not going to really be able to solve. I mean, we need to let them know that we tried to do everything that we could, and we need to look at everything, but I don't see how we can, here we are at 9 point something mils proposed, and 10 is our cap. That's really very little money if we have a crisis. And then it's not going away next year, and it's probably not going to be cheaper next year either.
Probably not.
We have high claims rates. That's what's fueling these premiums. And there's no way around that. I would like to know what other rural counties in the same situation are doing. We already heard, Stacy, wasn't it you that were talking to a colleague that Volusia County is now just taking across the board?
It was
all
the
employees get a contribution that's equal and
yeah, it was the Volusia County School Board. An ex-colleague of mine represents the school board, and they just agreed upon with the union on a contract that still has to be ratified, but it was a contribution from the county of 500, I think it was 31, either 531 or 541 to each person, and that's it, no matter what plan they decided to be in.
And what they don't know is that when they go out to buy insurance with that, it's going to be like $1,000 a month.
Well, they still had the plan, but I mean, that's how much the county was contributing to their portion of the cost
okay.
in the plan,
And I think
whichever they chose.
a lot of people would spend it and wouldn't be insured. And it's better to have our plan where we offer it for free and protect them. I don't know. I don't know the answer.
no, and you don't have to have that answer. What I need is an answer on, do we have the appetite or the courage to kind of hang the millage out there as a tool to combat this if it need be or not.
Mr. Chairman, for just a moment, let's talk about the options that we don't have, because I think that the average citizen does not understand that you can't commingle funds and you can't take money
That's right.
out of certain areas, and I think that we maybe have not drilled down on that reality, because when they start hearing numbers about you got this in the Better Place plan and you've got this in this fund and that fund, and there's not a what I would call a general understanding of the fact that although these funds have what they have, and most people don't understand fund balance, and the requirement, as was said earlier,
What it
about
can be
being able
spent
to
for.
cover expenses for 2 months, and you're at a position of 1 month, and then there are people who does not understand that this county, at the most difficult time in the most tenacious economy, have tried to take care of the employees there and take care of the citizens, for that matter. And now that we are, quote, the last to come out of this tough economy, and it may be another year, maybe 2 years or whatever, and we've used residuals, we've used contingencies, we've used reserves and all of the above. And now we're almost to see light at the end of the tunnel, but who's to say that we won't be in the same boat 12 months from now?
Nothing guarantees that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, let me say this. Public safety should be our number one issue. I mean, we shouldn't take it lightly if we're going to
I
do
agree.
anything.
It was stated
Of course,
by a candidate today that it was economic development and our responsibility was the economy, and it's not. It's public safety. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
And we might have to get back to that.
we keep saying, if we had a good economy, it would just solve so many problems, but one of them is public safety. So we have to realize how important that is. And we couldn't just give them money for their insurance and not our other employees. So we're looking at across the board, and it makes the number
It's all or
bigger.
nothing.
Yeah.
And again, the statute that I raised earlier, when it comes down to constitutional officers and their underpaid staff, you know, that constitutional officer has the responsibility and the authority to do the best they can and maximize their dollars that are allocated and appropriated to get those numbers up. And you know as well as I do that sometimes in order to raise salaries, you got to freeze positions because that's the only way you've got the money.
Or eliminate them.
Yeah, eliminate them, you know, through attrition or through other means. And I know that when surrounding communities were laying people off, even though the departments are not fluffy, the option was to give raises and lay folk off. And so raises were not given, but everybody's job was preserved.
Well, the tough part about this decision is that if we vote to go ahead and allow for that much millage to be raised, and we could use it, it's going to be real hard to say no later, even though it's optional.
Well, there's a segment of the community who simply says that's all we do is tax and spend, and they're labeling the commission as individuals who that's all we do. And the truth of the whole matter is when you've held the line, then it was a false sense of security for years and years and years when tough decisions maybe should have been made or could have been made, and they were not made because they're facing the same thing we're facing right now. Nobody wants to raise taxes, but you can't pay the bills.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
In our last workshop meeting, I had mentioned that we could possibly maybe not look at a full year, but maybe 4 months, get people to January and supplement it. Maybe the possibility is for us to take that to the table without raising the millage and see what commitments we get from the other constitutional officers. We might get enough money to go all the way out for a full year at that point. That wouldn't be such a strain on our budget or our reserves. And maybe, like you just said, maybe we can find it somewhere else in order to cut it. Maybe if we can do 3 months and someone else can do 3 and 2 and 2 and 1, and maybe we get to the end of the road faster. But I think we should look at that. But I don't like the idea because raising millage without the public hearing just kind of bothers me a little. So that's
Can't raise millage without public hearing.
Well, no one's here in the public, so that's
This is not the public hearing.
Not the public hearing, Larry.
I just don't believe it. I don't believe you have any realization of the magnitude of the numbers that you're dealing with here.
Yes, I do.
I mean, you know, just looking solely at the differential between the contribution that the county made towards the family buy-up in the current year and what the county will make in the coming year for 88 people, 88 families enrolled, if my math is right, it's about $300 a month times 88 families, provided none of them change.
$250,000.
$316,000. That's just for the family. And so the magnitude of just that one category is $316,000. So, you know, you got all these other categories, employees, and there's just, I mean, I just think the magnitude of that number is so much greater than just saying that constitutional officers will be able to make some contribution that would stretch it through the balance of the year. I just don't think that that's practical. And I'm not advocating that you raise the millage, by the way. Were I advocating that, we would have brought you that on July the 12th. I just suggested that to you as, that's out there for you to think about, that's all.
Just to be clear, the actual public hearings on the budget, proposed budget and proposed millage rates, those are going to be September 12th at 5:05, and the final on September 27th at 5:05.
Anything you set in July is tentative.
You know, when you look at the whole picture, our staff really did an admirable job to negotiate free insurance for each individual and for us to pay 75% of the family part for them. They don't like that policy as well, but at least it's a policy. It'll get you in the hospital, and if you have cancer, you know, it may save your life. It'll pay the expenses for any catastrophe. I think so often we forget what the main purpose of insurance really is, to be sure that you have the medical help when you need it and it's covered, and not so much how much it is per visit, you know, to the hospital and all the little things, the prescriptions. I mean, they do add up, of course, but you really want to insure for the big picture. You don't want to go bankrupt or have a family member not be able to get a heart transplant or something huge. That's really what the insurance is for, I think. And it's grown so much over the years that we like all the little things that go with it. And we need them, but you have to pay for them. They can't offer it for free. So I think overall, to have free insurance for each individual and an upgraded policy from what we had last time for the price for the core policy, it's really pretty good. And I think if everyone understood all of it, they were listening when we said, what does it cover? And we didn't get a chance to have comments after that, but I think they were digesting that it's not a raise of $600 a month for all of us. The majority of us will have the regular plan and will be covered.
No, they used a buyout plan differential to, some did, particularly people running for office that are desperate.
Yeah.
To drive the conversation and the perception of what was really going on here.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Commissioners?
And, yes.
There was another thing that they left out of the story they told. The sheriff has spoken to you about his staff shortages. And with staff shortages comes the need for overtime. And so most of those law enforcement officers work overtime and bring home overtime pay in their paychecks over and above that $29,000 they threw out there over and over and over again. So.
For the record, some of them got it paid today.
Indeed.
Yeah, to be here.
And that's wrong.
Well, this committee, when we meet, we're going to have to take the constitutionals and we're going to have to take all our budgets, and they're going to be very transparent and open to conversation and everything that means if we don't want to do this. And even then, I'm with Mr. Leary. I don't see it unless you totally gut the departments to bare bones. And I'm talking massive layoffs. We're at that point.
Well, I don't think the constitutional officers have a lot of play in their budget. Now, I know one of them.
No, I don't think so either.
Said he had a little bit of extra in his budget, but by and large, I think they're probably operating as, on a tighter budget as our individual departments are, so.
We've kept
I
them,
don't think there's a lot of latitude there.
No, that's why I said it would be a bare bones situation. I mean, I don't know what else you could take out of those departments that we haven't already examined. They've done a commendable job.
Well, and a lot of our departments, a lot of your departments, don't even know that their budgets have been somewhat reduced from what they've turned in because Stacy's worked them over pretty good.
Oh, I combed and
Did you?
combed and combed through them again. That's why I lost my composure a little bit and made the joke about my finger, because I've really combed through everybody's budget.
I think the other thing that the general public doesn't realize is that, you know, they say, oh, there's St. Johns County and they get paid this. Well, they don't realize that St. Johns County has the ocean and they have all these gated subdivisions and
Triple
they just
the
bring in
population.
lots of money, huh?
Triple the population.
Triple the population and probably triple the tax base. So it makes a difference.
Oh, it's big.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr.
Well,
Manning.
and related to that, I think is maybe some additional information about how much St. Johns County is contributing to their insurance would have an impact on their ultimate bottom line as well. I mean, you can't really look at just gross.
I do think we need to do more to show that our police department, our sheriff's deputies are appreciated. I don't think we do near enough. And, I mean, right now, they only want one thing, but we really need to work on that.
Okay. What's your fancy, Commissioners?
I'm opposed to a millage increase.
I'm sitting on the fence.
Me too.
Mr. Leary,
Yes, sir.
seemed like when I first came here, I remember you telling us about the insurance reserve and that there was X amount of dollars, but every year, I swear, I remember in those meetings say, we continue to deplete that number a little more. At some point in time, we're gonna get to the bottom. I thought I remember that once a year hearing that conversation from you. Well, you know, henny penny, the sky's fallen, the sky has fallen. That's it in reality, and everybody thought this day would never come.
Well, we are here.
Okay. She's
Mr.
running
Chairman.
the disc.
She needs a recess or timeout.
Okay, we're going to
Temporarily to
recess to
change.
change the,
Tape,
not the tape, your old school.
the DVD, or the
Okay.